Welcome back to another FPL deadline stream. It has been a while with a lengthy international break, and so much has happened during the FA Cup matches and during the international football, and the landscape of FPL has changed a lot. We have a lot of double and blank gimmicks coming up, and it seems like the Gameweek 30 wildcard is going to be fairly template amongst engaged managers, I should say, for FPL, and it's becoming a real possibility for me. We did get an update this morning about Justin Kluivert from the Bournemouth manager Iraola, and it looks like he is a major doubt to face Ipswich Town, which has certainly thrown a curveball. I was relatively happy to go into Gameweek 30 without using the wildcard and deploy it after the deadline. But now it does seem like it is becoming more likely that I will activate the chip. I will, of course, keep you updated throughout this stream, answer your questions, and try to help you hone in on your chip strategies and discuss all the different permutations. A lot of it has been covered throughout all of my videos already, but there have been a few updates ever since the FA Cup matches, and only one or two of those videos, of course, were recorded after the culmination of the FA Cup quarterfinals. Let's get straight into your questions as always. Drop a like if you enjoy the content, subscribe to the channel, And check out all the links in the description below for my Patreon, the Championships Discord server, FPL League, Spotify, Blue Sky, and much more. So Easy99 says, this injury changed my entire plan for the transfers. We'll keep the wildcard for now and take a -4 to sell Wood and Haaland to buy Isak and Mateta. Yeah, I like both of those moves. I would possibly favour Marmoush over Mateta, but with double Gameweek 32 in mind, I think it makes a lot of sense to go for Isak and Mateta first. And I'm just wondering who your other forward is. In terms of taking the hit now and then wildcarding later, it all depends on when you're going to do it, because if it's in Gameweek 31, I don't see many changes between a Gameweek 30 or 31 wildcard, but of course by that stage you should have more information and definitive updates, for example the teams that are definitely doubling in 33, because there's still a chance that those doubles fall into 36 instead, albeit it's less likely. So Easy also says, especially if there is double Gameweek 33 and 36 and a blank in 34, likely to use wildcard and free hit there. Yeah, I think if you have the free hit, that does change things a lot. So for those with the bench boost as well and the wildcard, I'm not a big fan of, let's say, wildcarding in 30 and 31, bench boosting in 33, and then not having the free hit for 34. That would be very difficult to navigate without the use of the free hit. So I think that's where your remaining chips are very important, and that could determine your final chip strategy. Everyone's situation will be slightly different though. Callum Jr. says, evening Dylan was planning to use wildcard in 31 for more info on doubles, but Haaland, Kluivert, and not having Saka will probably change that. I'm in a similar position to you. I'm not that against not having Saka for the next two. I'll be honest, I'd rather have Cole Palmer for the next two game weeks, but in the case of the others, especially with Kluivert, who I also have, it does make it more difficult, I think, to navigate Game Week 30 without using the wildcard right now. FPL Kevy says, only bought Haaland in recently, injured for months, straight swap to Marmoush, or good luck buddy. The best three forwards for me are Isak, Mateta and Marmoush. They would definitely be in for the wildcard for me. There is obviously some people going for two Crystal Palace midfielders like Sarr and Eze, and then Munoz or Dean Henderson to cover them defensively, and that would mean no Jean-Philippe Mateta or Oliver Glasner, of course, for the assistant manager. But yeah, apart from Isak, who I'd probably prioritise first, I'm guessing you've got him already, Marmoush would be second or third in line, really, especially this week where I actually do favour him over Mateta, but then with double Gameweek 32 in mind, it does become close and you'd maybe lean towards Mateta as a result, but Marmoush is a great replacement for Erling Haaland for sure. He becomes more appealing after that injury. This is my first time that I saw Haaland since I bought him from last season until now. Yeah, I've only done that once or twice, mainly looking back to Game Week 10, and I made a conscious decision not to go for him in the blank Game Week 29 transfers, and I was a bit fortuitous in the end with Bruno Fernandes kind of saving me, and now with this injury, it was looking like I was in a decent position, but I think the Kluivert injury has kind of changed things for me. Cylindra says, hey Dylan, my team is Pickford, Gabriel, Kirkes, Milenkovic, Salah, Palmer, Kluivert, Mbeumo, Bowen, Marmoush, Joao Pedro, Chris Wood and Hall on the bench. I feel I can hold off the wildcard until next game week. Yeah, I can see why you think that. I believe Palmer will start, for example, but the big issue for you, though, is Kluivert. He is a doubt, according to Iraola. I'll show you the graphics very soon. Pickford's away to Liverpool. The rest looks really solid, but if Kluivert doesn't play, yeah, you could have... Wait, who you got on your bench? Just Wood and Hall? You might be down to 10 men as a result, or just have a really weak option coming off your bench, so... Yeah, that'd be the only concern now. With Justin Kluivert's injury, that might change things for you slightly. But I don't own any Palace, Newcastle players, and no Isak plus Kluivert is a doubt. So with one free transfer and 4.2 million in the bank, which is the best transfer, I'll be honest, I'd be very tempted to wildcard in your situation. But with what you're saying, number one, sell one of Bowen, Mbeumo, Palmer, Kluivert to Eze or Sarr, or Saka, and bench one of Bowen, Mbeumo, Joao Pedro, Kluivert. Number two, Wood to Mateta, Isak, and bench one of Bowen, Mbeumo, Joao Pedro, Kluivert. And number three, Hall to Munoz. I think number three is probably just the safest bet, and I made a similar transfer a couple of weeks ago, very early on during this international break. But yeah, I think from those situations, I'd probably just wildcard in your situation, mate. But number three is probably the best. And bench one of Bowen, Mbeumo, Joao Pedro, and Kluivert. Yeah, I think from those options as well, I wouldn't bench Kluivert necessarily, to be quite honest with you. I would lean towards benching Joao Pedro. He did get a good return against Aston Villa in the reverse fixture though. Yeah, Baraf Palmer should play. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. He has been in training since Thursday, I believe, if not Friday. Definitely not easy. There have been multiple occasions where we have had injury crisis, or just multiple problems ensuing for many FPL managers. This might be the first time in a while, but it certainly isn't the first time ever. Richard Millichip says, hey Dylan mate, thoughts on my latest wildcard squad? Raya, Pope, Gavardio, Trippier, Munoz, Williams, Doherty, Salah, Saka, Foden, Sarr, Cliver, Isak, Marmoush, Ivanoson, 0.8 million left for assistant manager Glasner in 31 to 33. That gives me 5 double Gimmick 32 players plus Glasner assistant manager, 7 double Gimmick 33 players, and 8 blank Gimmick 34 players. Will use free roll transfers to get to a full 11 in 34, as I don't have the free hit, all assuming doubles are rescheduled into 33, and also in blank Gimmick 34 as predicted. Yeah, in the case of Forest versus Brentford. Yeah, very solid plan. I think because you don't have the free hit, that is a very solid strategy for you, and it makes a lot of sense for your situation. As for the players you picked on the wild card, I think you've got good goalkeepers, especially in the case of Raya. Arguably a bit too much money invested in that position, but it is kind of nitpicking, and as long as you've got the money in the bank to get Oliver Glasner and build a solid 15-man squad, I think you're in a good position anyway. I'm not a huge fan of Doherty, and in the case of Trippier, he might be a decent differential. Is he actually worth the money over Livramento and Dan Burn? I'm not so sure, to be honest, but if money is no issue, I think it's a decent punt to go for and something to differentiate yourself a little bit from the template wildcards. I really like the front line, even with Ivanoson. I like him for the next 2 game weeks. Beyond that, it's a little bit different perhaps, but Marmoush and Isak would certainly be there. So really good squad. Foden as a differential. I like him against Leicester. Not so much in the long term. I think he could be benched from time to time, but that remains to be seen. Salah, Saka, very solid. Sarr, Cliver is the big issue though, and I'll go into that very soon, but yeah, he might not even start in Game Week 30, and that's the biggest appeal of having him on the wildcard. So Chase says, Cliver is a doubt. Who should I replace him with? Wildcard activated. Well, I don't know who you have already, but I think Sarr, Eze, Murphy and Gordon would certainly stand out. Of course, Gordon would more so be for Game Week 31. And the injury he sustained during this international break, it was quite worrying at the time, but Eddie Howe was quite positive in his press conference today, I believe. So, yeah, apart from those Palace and Newcastle midfielders, yes, Saka would still be up there. In terms of viable replacements, though, at similar price, it's kind of slim pickings, in my opinion. You've got some decent single game week options in the next couple, like Jarrod Bowen when he faces Southampton. Maybe Matoma, Morgan Rogers. Could Aston Villa rotate during their doubles? I think it's possible with the Champions League and the FA Cup also being prioritised. But you've got different avenues there. The priority for me, though, is that Crystal Palace and Newcastle midfielder. And my favourites right now would be Sarr and Eze, especially for Game Week 30. Sandri says, I just did the wildcard. Raya, Areola, Milenkovic, Munoz, Gavardio, Wan-Bissaka, Bowen, Saka, Salah, Murphy, Sarr, Marmoush, Mateta, Isak. Use the free hit. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago towards the beginning of this stream, because you don't have the free hit, if you're also planning to bench boost soon, I'd highly recommend doing it in Game Week 32. The problem is you've already got 2 West Ham players away to Liverpool for that specific game week, so that can make it a little bit challenging. So if you do have the bench boost and you look to use it in Game Week 32, I'd recommend trimming down your West Ham assets because, yeah, having Areola, Wan-Bissaka and Bowen would be way too much, especially facing Liverpool. That is obviously circumstantial. You might not have that issue. Maybe you want a bench boost in 33 anyway. I get it. I'm just not too confident about navigating Game Week 33 with a bench boost and then having no free hit to tackle blank Game Week 34. It would require a hit or 2 at the very least for a lot of people, unless you have a lot of free transfers stacked up. But it's a good wildcard squad. Irrespective of what you end up doing and if you've got the bench boost or not, I think you've got way too many West Ham players. That would be my only criticism of your squad. Fundy11 says, hey Dylan, I did 1 transfer for Game Week 30 and I think I must activate the wildcard now. What is happening with my transfer that I have spent if I wildcard? Well, it just becomes part of your wildcard basically, but in terms of the number of transfers you've got available, it will remain the same. So if you had 3 transfers before you activate the wildcard, then you'll still have free transfers for the next deadline, if you catch my drift. Welcome, Islam Ahmed, and happy Eid to you as well. Thank you very much. FPL Kevy says, my remaining chips are wildcard and bench boost. Any weeks you would advise using them? I think for a lot of people, a Game Week 30 wildcard and bench boost in Game Week 32 looks really solid. If you're happy with your team this week, though, you can always wildcard in 31, but Yeah, it's pretty much I'd pinpoint 2 game weeks for both chips. 30/31 for the wild card, and then 32 or 33 for the bench boost, depending on your situation. But as I mentioned just now, and a couple of times in the stream already, because you don't have the free hit, my advice would be to bench boost in 32 and not in 33, because it makes it slightly easier to navigate the double preceded by the blank. The GOAT says, hey Dylan, would you buy Mateta or Marmoush? There is a chance I free hit in 33, or I could do both for a -4 and bench in Boomer, or take a -4 to do Horta Munoz, which I think I'll do. Yeah, so the fact you're free hitting in 33 might change my answer slightly, but because Crystal Palace have the double in 32, I'd perhaps lean towards Mateta, but only just. I really like Marmoush this week. He's ranked very highly in my captaincy list, as you'll see very shortly. And whilst Mateta's also ranked highly, I do prefer Marmoush this week and for Gameweek 33. Although you're saying you might free hit in 33, which is fair enough. You can also navigate blank Gameweek 34 and get to 11. You might find it challenging afterwards from Gameweek 35 to 37. Some pretty good teams in the Premier League like Arsenal, Bournemouth have some tough fixtures there. So that will be an issue a lot of people who wildcard now in 31 or even in 33 will kind of face later in the season. But yeah, I'd still lean towards Mateta at the moment, but not by much. Could you get both from -4 and bench in Boomer? That's an option. But in Boomer did get a double-digit haul against Newcastle in the reverse fixture, albeit it was at the GTEC Community Stadium. Brentford have been better in their away games recently, but you'd still fancy Newcastle at St James's Park, at least a little bit over Brentford. So Nick says, would you recommend bringing in Gordon just to have him benched this week on a wildcard? That's something I discussed in my wildcard videos. I'm not against that, but there's also Jacob Murphy who saves you a lot of money. So it depends on your budget and what other moves you're looking to do. For example, some people might go for Cole Palmer on the wildcard right now and then sell him to sack in Gameweek 33. So be very mindful about kind of booking in too many transfers. And Anthony Gordon should be good to go in Gameweek 31 based on what Eddie Howe said. I'll show you that update very shortly. But yeah, I don't mind having Anthony Gordon on the bench so long as you've got decent squad depth and a strong starting 11 on the wildcard, which, of course, I don't doubt you will have, of course. So Richard says, hi mate, only need my wildcard third striker for the blank Gameweek 34, but can fill them for good home fixtures in 30-32. Who's the best? Evanilson. So Ipswich in 30, Fulham in 32, and United in 34, or Joao Pedro facing Villa, Leicester, and West Ham? Yeah, that's a good question. Joao Pedro would certainly pique my interest. It's very close. I would lean towards Joao Pedro, but not by much. The Mantis says, hello, it feels so weird watching Deadline stream on Tuesday, but not UEFA. Yes, and there will be a Tuesday Deadline stream next week for UCL Fantasy, and the plan is still to do another one for the second leg of the quarterfinals. I will be on holiday, so it might be difficult to navigate, but if the internet works, I will be streaming there as well. But yeah, I completely get that, especially after being out for so many weeks, you know, with this international break. MMK, good to see you, and I hope you're doing well too. Yeah, exactly that, Danish. Liam says, I got Gibbs, White, Wood, Haaland, and Cliver wildcard this game week. Well, it depends on the rest of your squad, because if you've got a solid 11 in your starting lineup, then I don't think you need to necessarily this week. But I think for a lot of people with kind of similar absentees, yeah, it would be very tempting to use it. But I don't know the rest of your squad, so it's difficult for me to say. Best City attacker after Marmoush, it would be Foden. 430k already activated the emergency wildcard. Yeah, I'd expect that to... could double, but I definitely would expect that to increase before the deadline quite significantly, actually, close to the million mark, perhaps. I'll use the bench boost in Gameweek 33. I think that's sound, but if you don't have the free hit, I would advise you to reconsider and maybe use the bench boost in 32. For example, if you're tripling up on Crystal Palace and Newcastle, especially in the case of Newcastle, they've got Aston Villa away in 33, and it's not as appealing there, and it would require some transfers to navigate, and then if you go into 34 without the free hit, that could incur a lot of hits, so just be mindful of that. That is my main advice there in regards to those doubles and when to bench boost. Hey Dylan, just tuned in. Could you give a wrap of the key press updates, please? That'll be done fairly shortly. Don't worry about that. Thank you, Noel, for the super chat. If you got any messages or questions, then be sure to let me know. Thank you very much. Gameweek 35 is ugly. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. It's not just 35 though, it's also 36 and 37, especially if there is no double gameweek in 36, and the blank in 37 will obviously happen. So yeah, some good teams there with some promising FPL assets. We'll have some relatively tough fixtures around that time frame. I have the System Manager chip left. Shall I wildcard now? It also depends on which other chips you've got. If those are the only two you've got left, then wildcarding in 30 and then using the Assistant Manager in 31 looks really solid for you. I went with Pedro over Vanossen because of bench boost 32. Yeah, I think that also plays a part. I leant towards Joao Pedro when I answered that question, but I think both of them are very solid. And in terms of when you bench boost, that could be very crucial in determining the best pick there. I only need my triple captain to make me 200 points to catch up in my mini league. Yeah, 200 points obviously is a big stretch. You can still claw that gap in general, and the triple captain can help you quite significantly. But yeah, the triple captain in general is not going to get you like a massive gain over other people. Remember, you're only gaining, let's say, 20 points from Isak. Let's say he gets him 32, and your mini league rival captains him. You're only gaining 20 points on him for that reason. Is Claver going to play? I couldn't tell you for sure, but he looks very doubtful, and that will be covered in terms of the definitive quotes by Iriola and the other managers, not just today, but also yesterday as well. Yeah, look, on the wild card, going to Savio as a punt, I'm not completely against it, but he's only got one Premier League goal this season. He does have the assists, decent numbers there, but I'm not a huge fan of Savio in general. I think it's really that fixture against Leicester and a double in 33, which is very likely, which is the main appeal. But is he going to start all of those games? I don't think so, to be honest. Worth a punt to go Eze, Sarr, Mateta on the wildcard with no Munoz? Yes, it is worth a punt, but my advice would be to go for one Crystal Palace defender, and Munoz is definitely the standout, if not Dean Henderson in goal. Anish says, Dylan on the wildcard, Edison, Munoz, Milenkovic, Kirkes, Salah, Sarr, Bowen, Dango, Marmoush, Isak, Mateta, Pope, Son, Gabriel, Livramento on the bench. Some interesting choices there. Very good wildcard squad overall. But I think it's also very important to kind of break down which chips you've got left. That also impacts certain decisions. So if you've still got the bench boost, and my advice would be to use it in 32, especially if you don't have the free hit, then I would definitely change a few things here. But yeah, Heung-min Son I don't think is worth the money. I know he's got a high ceiling, but he's going to blank more often than not, in my opinion. So I would definitely move him on to somebody else. That could even be Phil Foden, who I'm not a huge fan of, but with fixtures like Leicester this week and then a double in 33, which is very likely, I think I'd rather go in that direction. Not to mention the likes of Saka and Cole Palmer. I think both of them are significantly better than Heung-min Son. I also don't like Edison too much as a goalkeeper. I think Raya would be a better pick. And you've got no Arsenal defender, but yeah, Gabriel to be fair. So you don't need to double up on them. You don't need to, but maybe instead of Edison, yeah, Dean Henderson would be another choice. Of course, you've got a Crystal Palace triple up already, so you don't need to do that necessarily. I think Verbruggen could be decent for Gameweek 32 on the bench boosts, Areola for Gameweek 33. So consider those goalkeepers as well. If not David Raya, I certainly wouldn't be against doubling up on Arsenal defensively. And yeah, I wouldn't go for Heung-min Son. Dango Ouattara, no. I wouldn't go for Dango Ouattara. He might start in Gameweek 30, but long term he's going to be a rotation risk. I'd rather avoid that completely. So I'd consider selling those players and making a few changes, but a lot depends on which chips you've got left, like the bench boost especially. Ulises United says, hola Dylan, considerando que tengo el bench boost, wildcard y free hit, ¿crees que sea mejor usar el wildcard la próxima semana? Si estás contento con tu equipo ahora, está bien usarlo en la jornada 31. Yo también tengo el bench boost, wildcard y free hit, así que para mí está bien hacer algo como wildcard en la jornada 30, bench boost en la jornada 32 y el free hit en la jornada 34. Pero en tu caso, porque tienes el free hit, también puedes usar el bench boost en la jornada 33, pero yo usaría los chips de esa manera. Thanks for the feedback, mate, says Richard. Doughty, Kluivert in my wildcard primarily for blank Gameweek 34. Yeah, I get that, and Kluivert could be benched this week, but it's just something worth mentioning. Any better suggestions? I can downgrade Trippier to Livramento to free up a bit more money if needed. I think Trippier's a nice punt. As differential, I don't mind it, and his ceiling would be higher but I don't think we've seen him reach the heights of previous seasons, and he's also more of an injury risk compared to Livramento. So I just think it's worth making the savings on Livramento there, and that can help you make 1 or 2 upgrades in other positions. As for Doughty and Cliver, it makes complete sense why you've got them, and you can start Cliver this week, and if he doesn't play at all, it's not the end of the world. You've got a decent cover off your bench to come on, and Doughty's got a good fixture in Game Week 34 against Leicester. So yeah, you've got some decent ideas there. I'm still not completely sold on Wolves defenders in general, even with that fixture against Leicester, but for that game specifically, it does help you rival those of the free hit, and I think I would probably go for Cunha and 8 Nuri on my Game Week 34 free hit. That is the plan at the moment. Lots of the wildcards are very template. Do you have any specific players going under the radar? Well, keeping Cole Palmer won't be a differential, but that could be a play, especially if you've got a lot of free transfers available, to then move on to Saka in Game Week 33, but I would rather have Palmer for the next couple of game weeks. Maybe having both of them and Salah at the same time could be another way of doing it, but it also requires a sacrifice elsewhere. I mean, Richard just mentioned Trippier. That could be another differential if you're really seeking those lower-owned players and going against the template a little bit at least, but it won't be a massive gain, in my opinion, or a massive difference unless he gets injured. So, yeah, Jarrod Bowen, if you're looking to bench boost in Game Week 33, for example, or going for Areola, a West Ham defender. Not all of them at the same time, though. I think 2 West Ham players would be enough, and that's only to prioritise that Southampton fixture for Game Week 33. How risky is it to have Saka and Gordon on the wild card with Saka starting? Well, reports do indicate that Saka will start. Time Sport are one of the sources. Mikel Arteta was very bullish on him yesterday. I'll show you the exact quotes very soon. I might as well go into that now because I've answered a lot of questions already, and I will continue to do so throughout the entirety of the stream, but it's also worth mentioning those updates. Drop a like on this stream if you find it insightful or entertaining, and also subscribe to the channel. We're getting close towards 33,000 subscribers, and that'll be our next big goal by the end of this season. So it'd be very much appreciated if you show support to the channel, and check all the links in the description below for all my different social media platforms. But before I go into the injury updates necessarily, I might show 1 or 2 here. I also want to discuss stuff like my FPL League. There is a code in the description below and an auto-join link to make it very easy. Big up to Callum, who is in the chat right now, 9th in the world. Hopefully you can push on to number 1, and the same goes for everybody else in this list who has joined. We have thousands of members, and the list keeps on growing, so big shout out to everyone there. We are getting, a closer league battle, so to speak, but Callum is still flying at the moment in top spot, and I'll give regular updates on the mini league throughout the season. So this is what was obviously discussed today, and I do have a graphic about this, so I'll cover this more in detail later. But Iraola did say that Cliver is a doubt to face Ipswich Town, so that is obviously another curveball thrown at us for the Game Week 30 potential wildcard. I was actually quite set to wildcard in 31 instead, and just go with what I have now, have Cliver and Evanilson against Ipswich Town. Now I might need to reconsider. And Anthony Gordon, obviously he is suspended right now, but he will be back in Game Week 31 facing Leicester away, and then a double game week of Crystal Palace and Man United in Game Week 32. And Eddie Howe said the following: he has had some nasty bruising around his thigh, but he's up and running and feeling quite good. He's not trained with the group yet, so I anticipate he'll do that within the next few days. With the FDR, the fixture difficulty rating, Nottingham Forest are top until Game Week 35, with Newcastle, Bournemouth, Brentford and Man City in the top 5. The likes of Arsenal and Brighton are just outside that kind of elite group there until, well, for the next 6 game weeks basically. If we look at the bottom teams, you've got Fulham, Ipswich Town, Everton, Spurs, Leicester and West Ham, and some good teams in mid-table like Liverpool and of course Crystal Palace from an FPL perspective are very interesting, but with the blank in 34 it does go down significantly. Of course, if we change the parameters to Game Week 33, Crystal Palace will be pretty much near the top there. But yeah, I still think Oliver Glasner is the most appealing assistant manager for the next 3 game weeks, and that's something that is suggested by these algorithms. But for Game Week 30 specifically, Mohamed Salah is top for predicted points with 8.4, Isak is second, and we've got Mateta completing the podium with Palmer, Semenyo, Sarr, Marmoush, Gvardiol, Gabriel and Cliver in the top 10. But we might see a change there actually with Justin Cliver in particular. Let's see if the points have been updated for him. Perhaps they haven't. Yeah, they have. So Szoboszlai is now in the top 10 instead of Justin Cliver with the injury update I just provided you. So for the assistant manager, Oliver Glasner is ranked top, and I do agree with this. Eddie Howe, Guardiola, Slot and Amrim are in the top 5. I think if you're also considering using this chip around Game Week 31 to 33, Arteta will be another solid choice in my opinion. Arsenal have some good fixtures, and they've got a very appealing double potentially against Ipswich Town and Crystal Palace, who could rotate with the FA Cup semi-final only a couple of days afterwards. Then again, Arsenal do have Real Madrid in between, so they could also rotate a little bit, and that could be a fairly difficult game to predict in the end. As for price changes, we will probably see more modifications to this list as we go on until the end of the deadline, but Saka, Gvardiol, Salah, Eze, Raya, Gabriel, Saliba, Murphy, Livramento, Burn, Areola are all expected to go up in price tonight, whilst the likes of Mbumo, Neto, Cunha, Gakpo, Calvert-Lewin, Emerson Palmieri, Beto, Yarmouk, Johnson, Fass and Visser could go down. But another website I found to be very useful with predicting price changes is livefpl.net, so be sure to check them out as well. Let's also have a stats comparison of two Crystal Palace midfielders, Eze and Sarr. And over the course of this season, I think Sarr has been slightly better in FPL terms. He's got 7 goals to Eze's 2. But in the Cups, Eze has really stepped up on multiple occasions, and he typically ends seasons very strongly. And with that performance against Fulham in the FA Cup, both of them, of course, scored, but Eze got the assist as well. He would be maybe the more appealing pick, a differential, so to speak. And for those that are looking to go a bit different compared to the template wildcards, having both of them at the same time could be a nice play there, or perhaps going for Eze instead of Ismaila Sarr. But I think his ownership is actually higher than Sarr's, if I'm not mistaken, but having both would certainly be a massive differential in the end. Their stats are identical. Eze has many more shots with 83 compared to Sarr's 43, but shots on target are pretty much the same. Shots in the box, only 4 separate them as well. The XG is in Sarr's favour. The same goes for big chances and big chances created, but the key passes is obviously going to be in Eze's court, and he's on set pieces as well. The expected assist, though, is also in Sarr's favour, but he does have more appearances and minutes this season. Eze, though, has remained fit for a large part of this campaign, but he has been very disappointing. Only 2 Premier League goals. I actually owned him for one of them against Chelsea, where he got a double-digit return, and the other was against Southampton in that reverse fixture, and I ended up going for Sarr by that point, and it wasn't a great transfer. But of course, you can't let ownership bias cloud your judgment. I also think Sarr's shown more consistency in recent weeks. Let's not forget in Game Week 27 and 28, he was getting some big returns there as well, and one of them came against Aston Villa. He loves playing against them, but I do think both of them are good picks. I think Sarr would be the better pick in general, though, because of the value, and it does save you a lot of money to then upgrade other positions, but I certainly don't mind Eze, and I think this week he would be my preference over Sarr facing Southampton away. Next up is also FPL.team. So in Game Week 30, this is my current squad at the moment. I made one transfer buying Munoz for Veltman before the Colombian went up in price a few weeks ago, but the rest is pretty much the same. I haven't wildcarded yet, but it's looking very likely. Kluivert is now yellow flagged, of course, as we all know. And on my bench, I've got Chris Wood, who's also a major doubt. I don't think he's going to play in Game Week 30. Robinson away to Arsenal, and Mikalenko away to Liverpool, who's also flagged. So it's either take a -4 hit or rely on Chris Wood or Robinson to come off my bench and then wildcard in 31. So the key difference here is I could build something like this with Raya in goal, Gvardiol, Munoz, Milenkovic, Salah, Kluivert, probably on the chopping block to be fair, Sarr, Saka, Isak, Marmoush, Mateta, and a bench of Murphy, Gabriel, Livramento. And it could be Areola, but because I'm leaning towards a Game Week 32 bench boost, I might go to Verbruggen instead. So if we also visualize future game weeks, and let's also get rid of Kluivert for now, this is where things will get a bit spicy in terms of replacing him. I was quite set on keeping Kluivert and having him for the Game Week 32 bench boost against Fulham. I was actually quite on board of that. And to be fair, I could still keep him on the wild card. And then just have Jacob Murphy or Gabriel come on for him if needed. Then for Game Week 31, I've got Raya, Munoz, Gabriel, Livramento, and pretty much a similar midfield, but I've got Jacob Murphy there instead with Salah, Kluivert, Saka, and a decent bench of Verbruggen, Ismaila Sarr, Gvardiol, and Milenkovic. And then for Game Week 32, with an expected points figure of 100.4, that is a very solid looking bench in my opinion, if I dare say so myself. I've got Verbruggen at home to Leicester, Kluivert at home to Fulham, Gabriel at home to Brentford, and Milenkovic at home to Everton with a decent 11. I'm not kind of like rigging things and shithousing a bench boost and just making it look better than it is. You could maybe say, oh, bench Gvardiol and start, Gabriel instead or something like that. But ultimately, that is a very good bench boost team in my opinion, and it makes me very tempted to play the chip this week. Maybe keep Clivert just in case, but in the end, I might have to just settle for my losses and sell him. I do have a bit of value tied up in him, but not as much as other people watching would. I kind of came late to the party with Clivert, to be fair, but that is looking very solid with my plans. I've still got the free hit as well. I could use in Gameweek 33, but the most likely scenario is it will be deployed in Gameweek 34, where I've got quite a lot of players who blanked there, as you can see. So it makes a lot of sense for me to free hit in 34, and then from 35 to 38, I just kind of take each week as it comes, and I've got no chips remaining. That is my plan. So wildcard in Gameweek 30 or 31, no matter what it is, I will be wildcarding today. I'll let you know for sure before the prices change tonight. Bench boost in 32 is looking very likely for me, with Gameweek 33 being the alternative and the free hit in 34. That is my current chip strategy, and a lot of you will be in a similar boat with the same chips remaining and probably similar plans with your wildcard team and also the way you're going to navigate future game weeks. And let's not forget FPL Challenge. I'll go back to this after the deadline has passed because the full focus will be on FPL right now until 6:15 p.m. UK time. So the challenge this week is called Fortified Front. I've gone for Salah, Palmer, Saka and Clivert in the midfield. That might need a bit of a change there, of course, with the Dutchman being a doubt now. Mateta, Marmoush and Isak. So a very template front three. And perhaps I'll go for Eze instead of Justin Clivert here for FPL Challenge. So that will be my updated squad. Salah's the captain right now. I might go a little bit different as I typically do in FPL Challenge. And yeah, 49 points last week wasn't great, but I've actually done fairly well over the course of the season. And I'll go back to this very shortly. But before I go back to my FPL squad, let's actually talk about the injury updates, which of course have been highly requested by people in the chat already. And I completely get it. So let's start off with maybe the least important ones, you could say. But Graham Potter said this about West Ham team news. So Somerville, no, he won't be available, but Fulkrug has been training with the group and will more than likely be in the squad. So we've just got to obviously build the minutes up in terms of what he's able to do. He hasn't played competitive football for a while and he's had a fairly significant injury, but he's training well and he's building his fitness up, so he'll be in the squad. Next up is with Arsenal, and this will be of more FPL interest, especially in the case of Bukayo Saka. He is set to return for Arsenal, and Arteta said the following: all of the careful things he's already done, it's about putting him on the grass in the right moment. He's pushing, he really wants it, we have respected the timeline, we had to hold him back, he is ready to go. And as for Calafiori, he will be out for several weeks, so Calafiori unfortunately picked up a knee injury again with the national team. It was really unfortunate how that injury happened, but it could have been much worse, so hopefully it's going to be a matter of weeks, but we have to see how the injury evolves. Jurrien Timber has been ill for a long time, but he has felt much better in the last few days, so he is available. Next up is with Leicester, and Ruud van Nistelrooy said, we obviously had Ricardo Pereira out for the Man United game, but he's doing really well. Hopefully we can get him on the training pitch today and tomorrow and see if he's ready for Wednesday. Marco Silva said this ahead of their clash against Arsenal tonight. Right now, nothing really serious. Some knocks, which is normal. Some tiredness from the game, but nothing serious. We're going to do the same today, a session to assess them, and after, take decisions. With Nottingham Forest, who reached the FA Cup semi-final and having a great season in third place, a slight kind of downside to it is Chris Wood with the injury picked up during the international break. And Nuno said this about the New Zealand striker: he's improving after getting better day by day. We have to assess him day by day. A big contusion, so it's very painful. And on other Forest injuries, of course we have. After we played extra time and a demanding game, we have to assess them all. I think we are recovering well. The joy and the happiness of coming through and playing at Wembley will be sure to give us an extra run for tomorrow. And of course he's referring to today, but he said those quotes yesterday. With Man United, he said this, Ruben Amorim that is, Luke Shaw is not ready yet. We are starting to do some drills with the team, but we are building him up. Mason Mount is feeling better, but was already on the bench for the last game. Kobe Mainoo is almost ready, but not for this game. Johnny Evans has recovered. Aiden Heaven is recovering. Licha Martinez is out. Harry Maguire and Yoro are also both ready. And he also said this about Aiden Heaven's injury: it won't be too serious. He's recovering. He's still not ready to play, but he'll return this season for sure. So very soon we'll get to the very interesting bits, of course, of Erling Haaland and Kluivert, but Vitor Pereira said this about Wolves team news: no new injuries, everyone is in a condition to help the team, it's good. And of course, this is the one with Erling Haaland. Man City posted this statement yesterday night, and they can confirm that Haaland has sustained an ankle injury and he'll miss most of the remainder of the season. But the hope is he's back for the FIFA Club World Cup. And Pep Guardiola gave a specific update this morning, and he said, the doctors told me between 5 and 7 weeks out, so hopefully for the end of the season, he will be ready. So that has obviously changed the Gameweek 30 wildcard and how things have looked. And this is the fixture schedule right now, according to Ben Krellin, and you can see there the likely double game weeks, the possible ones, and feel free to pause and ask any questions about it if you want to. But yeah, I'm going to also show you the Justin Kluivert one again, just in case. So let's get this up as well. And yeah, we can give you the exact quotes by Iriola again. So just give me a second and I will show you what has been said. For some reason, the image didn't load up here, so I'm going to get it up on screen for you. So let's see. So yeah, Justin is the one we are more in doubt with. He finished with some issues and we have to check today to see if he's ready to go again. I mean, it doesn't seem too bad and I would expect him to be available for Gameweek 31 and 32, but it's not what you want to hear on the, well, eve, just a few hours before the Gameweek 30 deadline. So we'll see how that kind of develops, but Justin Kluivert is a doubt. He's now yellow flagged in FPL and that's added another headache to the multiple you've got already. But let's now go back to my FPL team for now. I haven't activated the wildcard yet, but it's becoming increasingly more likely, to be quite honest with you. And I think it's probably the best course of action for my squad. And the bench boost in 32 is looking quite likely as well. Best Kluivert replacement. So I would favour Palace and Newcastle midfielders for sure. If you've got them already, then I would maybe consider someone like Matoma, perhaps. But it's only for Gameweek 32. I think when you bench boost also plays a big part in your Kluivert replacement. For example, Jared Bowen might be accessible to you, and he's got a great fixture against Southampton in Gameweek 33. I still prefer Kluivert over Matoma, Lewis. That is still my preference, and I don't mind keeping Kluivert on the wildcard, but having that bench cover if needed, that's something I won't have if I don't wildcard today. Welcome KDB17. Hello Dylan. Greetings from Greece. It's been a while since I've been there, but yeah, very... well, a lot of different locations, great places to go to, and thank you very much for tuning in. Thoughts on Disasai over Konsa? I'm not a big fan of Aston Villa defenders. It's just those doubles, really, like in 33, but let's not forget, it would be Newcastle and Man City. It's not exactly a great double. I don't expect a clean sheet. I know Emi Martinez will be fairly popular on wildcard, so I get it. Konsa's also probably a little bit more likely to start all the games compared to the other defenders. I think Luka Dean, for example, would be a big rotation risk. He might have the highest ceiling, but I would probably avoid if possible. If I had to pick one, it would be Konsa. He is a bit more template, but at the same time, he's also safer. I'm not sure I saw it, but it is predicted, says Sandri. Let's see what you're referring to. Oh, yeah, for Gameweek 34. Yeah, it is looking very likely. I discussed this as well in the last couple of days. Of course, it's not set in stone, but Forest versus Brentford will likely stay in blank Gameweek 34. Any 4.8 million defender, have Areola, Livramento and Konsa in my wildcard. You might consider 8 Nuri, for example. That will help you a lot for blank Gameweek 34. But if you've got the free hit, or you're not really looking too much into that, and you want to prioritize other game weeks, then that's fair enough. You might look in a different direction and go for Lewis Dunk for Gameweek 32, or perhaps going for a West Ham defender in 33. But I think having Areola in place already is more than enough. So if you really want that coverage for the blank, it would be 8 Nuri. I'd like to have Foden in my wildcard, but I have to transfer Gvardiol for Ruben or a C defender, or Gabriel for Timber. Which would you do? Look, Timber's been really impressive for Arsenal this season, and he has stepped up multiple times, despite just coming off the back of that ACL injury. But I think with Ben White now back, that could spell some rotation over the coming weeks, especially when Arsenal play Real Madrid. I just don't really see Timber starting all of those games with Ben White on the bench all the time. So I think Timber is a bit of a risk, to be honest. I know of Gabriel, you could also say, well, maybe Kivior comes in for him and gives him a rest in a Premier League match. That's also possible, but I think it's less likely than during Timber making way for Ben White. So, yeah, Gvardiol, you're sacrificing the attacking potential and going for Ruben Dias, who should start most games. But with Man City defenders, you never quite know there what's going to happen. if I had to make a sacrifice, it would be... I think it'd be Ruben Dias for Gvardiol, but that would be an unpopular opinion, and I understand why. Chase says, with Cliver out, what do you think about getting Ivanosen for Mateta and opting for Eze instead? Already have Munoz and Sarr, also have Salah, Saka and Gordon. Yeah, that's a good strategy, especially if you want to differentiate yourself a little bit. I've got Ivanosen myself, and I was quite keen to keep him for Game Week 30, but if I wildcard, I probably will go in the direction of Mateta instead. I'll be honest, if I'm looking a bit longer term as well, yeah, I'd still rather have Mateta. And in the case of Cliver, you can still keep him on your wildcard and just have him being subbed off automatically and have him in place for Game Week 31 and 32. There will be no double in 33, but he's still got a decent fixture as well and could help you with your bench boost as well. Best wildcard team if I don't have the free hit. It'd still be quite similar, but you would maybe have like an 8 Nuri in there or a Jose Sarr, perhaps even Areola, of course. But you have to be a bit more conscious about Game Week 34. That's the way you'd go about things, but if you check out my best wildcard team videos, those drafts will definitely help you in terms of navigating 34 without the free hit, and you can add 1 or 2 more players who feature in that game week who can then really help you. Konate, for example, would be one of them. I get it, but it's predicted to be rearranged again in Game Week 34, says Sandri. Napstar says, I'm going to wildcard in 31 and bring in Fernandes for Tel and bench Kluivert. Yeah, Fernandes, not the greatest fixture this week, and also against Man City. I'd be more appealed by that, to be fair, in Game Week 31. It is an upgrade on Tel for me, so I get that. Benching Kluivert looks sound. You can maybe keep him on your wildcard when you do decide to play the chip, probably after the deadline today. So, good strategy. Michael says, hey, should I move Wood for Mateta or Trent for Munoz? That is a good question. I'd consider both of them, even for a hit, but I think I'd go for Mateta, because I don't think Crystal will play, to be fair. Konsa or Wan-Bissaka? I'd lean towards Wan-Bissaka, but if you've got Areola already, do not double up on West Ham. I know they might have Southampton in Game Week 33, and if you're bench boosting there, that could be really helpful, but especially if you're bench boosting in 32, that could change the answer, but for me, it'd be Wan-Bissaka in isolation. Do you think Marmoush is a good captain? Yes, he is, and that also reminds me of the top 10 captaincy list, which I'm going to show you right now. But yeah, for me, Marmoush has gone up in my estimation. With Erling Haaland out of the equation, he's going to start. The minutes and the expected minutes are all going to be much higher now. So I'd be very bullish on Marmoush right now. So let's go to this section, the game week analysis. You can see all these different graphics and my predictions for the game week. So I've gone for Arsenal 2, Fulham 1, Wolves 1, West Ham 1, Nottingham Forest 1, Manchester United 0, Bournemouth 3, Ipswich Town 1, Brighton 2, Aston Villa 2, Manchester City 4, Leicester 0, Newcastle 3, Brentford 2, Southampton 0, Crystal Palace 2, Liverpool 2, Everton 0, and then Chelsea 2, Tottenham Hotspur 1. Let's also talk about team weaknesses and also the highlighted player. So Southampton is obviously a team to always target, and in central areas they've conceded so many shots and chances, as you're going to see in the next graphic. And I think Eze is going to be the very best of the Palace lot. And just look at those, or the graphics. So the blue circles indicate the shots conceded by Southampton this season, and the heat map just under it is where Eze has had his shots in this campaign. It does seem like a perfect match. They concede so many chances just outside the edge of the box and also approaching the 6-yard box. I mean, I think Eze is a great option here. I know the likes of Sarr and Mateta are also appealing, Daniel Munoz and Henderson. If you're free in this week and could pick 4 or 5 Palace players, you'd probably consider it, but I think Eze might be the standout this week. He's also in great form and typically ends seasons very strongly, so I'm very bullish on him. And if it wasn't for Sarr being significantly cheaper and the other moves I want to do on the wildcard, I think Eze would be in for me for the Game Week 30 wildcard squad, and that is a great differential for you if you haven't gone there already. But let's also discuss the clean sheet odds and the over 2 goals odds, which are taken by fantasyfootballpundit.com and DraftHound respectively. So in number 1 spot, we've got Arsenal with a 54% chance of keeping a clean sheet. Liverpool and Man City are second with 51%. Then you've got Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, and Nottingham Forest completing the top 6. And in terms of scoring over 2 goals, Man City are actually top of any team this week, which makes a lot of sense, facing Leicester, who are bottom of the entire list, with a 7% chance of keeping a clean sheet and a 5% chance of scoring over 2 goals. So next up is the top 10 captaincy list, and Erling Haaland was originally easily in the top 2 spots. There was no question about it, but I had to make a few changes. You can see the yellow flag players there in Cole Palmer and Kluivert. I've still got them in. I'm very confident Cole Palmer will play. I can't say the same about Kluivert though. But Mohamed Salah is top. Marmoush is second, facing Leicester at home. And Isak is in third, with Cole Palmer in fourth. If he showed a bit of form recently and didn't have that lengthy injury over this international break, then I think Palmer could be even higher, possibly up to second place. But he's in fourth here, and Eze completes the top 5, with Kluivert in 6. Maybe now he would obviously drop down out of the top 10 entirely. Phil Foden is 7th, Mateta 8th, Saka and Sarr complete the top 10. Saka is expected to start, like I mentioned before, according to Time Sport and other reliable sources, so I'd be very confident that Bukayo Saka is a great investment from now until the end of this season. But on the wildcard, if you are able to manipulate things in such a way, I'd definitely consider going for Cole Palmer up until Gameweek 33 and then switching him to Bukayo Saka. But let's now go back to my FPL squad, which, once again, I've only made 1 free transfer. I've got 4 yellow flags at the moment, and it has been the case for the entire international break. Even Veltman, who I sold, was orange flagged. So, yeah, it's like a Christmas tree. A lot of different problems to solve, and that's what the Gameweek 30 wildcard could do. Yeah, Palmer should play. I just mentioned that multiple times. Would you go for Marina or Saka? Definitely Saka for me, 100%. I think he's worth the extra millions, and he's got the ability to get goals and assists on a regular basis. Marino's done a good job as a striker. Even for Spain, he scored against the Netherlands during this international break. But yeah, I think Saka is the one. Kluivert or Saka? It would be Saka, I think, if I had to pick one on the wild card, because for Gameweek 33, I think he is one of the best captaincy options by that stage. Vissa and Wood, who would you sell for Marmoush? Yeah, good question. If it wasn't for the injury, I'd say sell Vissa. But now it's a little bit different. Despite the positive update by Nuno surrounding Chris Wood recently, I'd probably sell him first. Triple Newcastle attack. I'd still go for one defender personally, but I get it. Going for Murphy, Gordon and Isak could work fairly well. I think 2 is probably enough though, and you also would lose coverage of one of Saka or Palmer potentially. You also want Salah, not to mention Crystal Palace assets like Sarr or Eze, perhaps even both, and Jean-Philippe Mateta up front. So I think a balance is probably what I'd advise in general. So for both Crystal Palace and Newcastle, I'd advise attacking double-ups, but not triples. Is Chris Wood definitely out? No, he's not definitely out, but he is a major doubt for the game. Hopefully we get a definitive update about him, but it's not looking too good. I'll be honest though, if, let's say for example, we got a reliable source saying now that Chris Wood is going to play, maybe I just wildcard in 31. I've got Chris Wood coming in for Kluivert if needed, and it's a decent squad to compete for with wildcarders this week, and a bit more information when I activate the chip going into the next deadline. I'm captaining Marmoush. Yeah, I like that a lot. He's second in my list, and if you want to go a bit different, he is definitely one of the top ones I'd recommend. How likely are Forest to not blank in 34? I'm not sure about exact percentages, but I think it's quite likely. 60-70% chance if I had to put an exact one, but ultimately that's just a complete guess in my opinion. So yeah, I did show earlier the provisional schedule, and I might go back to it at some stage in this video. But yeah, if we look here at this graphic by Ben Krellin, it's most likely going to be in Gameweek 34, and a few other websites I think that people have mentioned in this chat that they've seen on X have also suggested the same thing. But I think it's more likely than not that Forest and Brentford will feature in blank Gameweek 34, which is going to be very helpful for those without the free hit. Not FPL related, but Verstappen probably going to Mercedes next year. We might get a brutal domination, 10 titles, the aim. I'm not so sure about that, and will Mercedes be the same next year? We'll wait and see, but yeah, I've seen a few rumours like that. I mean, things have kind of gone for the worse at Red Bull ever since Adrian Newey left and all the controversies surrounding the team. So yeah, it's kind of surprising how things can change so quickly. Is Barnes a good differential? Yeah, that's another one that hasn't really been mentioned, but that is another way of kind of differentiating yourself from the crowd. My issue with this, though, is that when Gordon is available by Gameweek 31, I still think Murphy and Gordon will start and Barnes will be on the bench. So it might be a great punt this week, but for Gameweek 31 and 32, when you most need him, he might not get the minutes you pretty much desire. Thoughts on the City triple up? I think 2's enough. So going for Foden this week looks really good against Leicester. So I'm not completely against it. But would I rather Foden over Palmer or Saka? I'll be honest, I just don't think they compare. There are levels to it, and I think both of them are significantly more consistent this season than Phil Foden. So I think Gavardio and Marmoush is where I'd go to, and if you want to go a bit different and go for the extra City player, then I would suggest Phil Foden, and some people might even consider Savinho because of his price, which I completely get. I just don't like his goal record. Yeah, Clive I just covered. He's got an injury. Well, he's a bit of a doubt for Gameweek 30. Probably the quick turnaround, and he felt a few issues after the game against Man City in the FA Cup. But he should be available by Gameweek 31, 32, but he is a doubt for this Gameweek specifically. Soldier Boy says, I don't think I'm going to wildcard. That's fair enough. I completely get that. Thoughts on Pedro Neto? Just not a big fan. I've said this quite consistently. For those games against Southampton, Leicester earlier this season, just a couple of weeks ago, I was quite, okay to say, you know what, he's a decent punt for those game weeks, but afterwards, I just wouldn't be considering him. Welcome, John. Average at FPL says, thinking about doing Palmer and Wanyeri to sack an Eze for a -4. Worth it? I do prefer the duo you're bringing in, just to make it clear. My issue with this is selling Palmer for a hit. I actually think Palmer's the best of the lot this week if he does start against Tottenham, which I believe will be the case. So that is my major concern there. Thank you, Keith, for moderating the chat. And of course, that question has been answered already. Who to captain this week? Yeah, for me, Salah. Kind of a standard one, but if you want to go a little bit different, I'm very bullish on the likes of Marmoush. I think Foden's a nice differential, but you saw the top 10 captaincy list just now. Feel free to rewind, and you can always go back to the live section afterwards. But yeah, Marmoush is like my favorite differential captain, so to speak. He might not be too much of a differential by the end of this deadline stream. Will Nottingham Forest play in Gameweek 34? Yeah, it's very likely, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago. It's not set in stone, though. Start Kluivert or Joao Pedro this week, says Richard Millichip. I'd start Kluivert just in case, but he is a doubt, of course, as we all know. Start Murphy or Elanga? I'd favour Murphy. Howson or Milenkovic? I prefer Milenkovic in general. Differentials, please. I've mentioned a few, so Harvey, Barnes and Trippier from Newcastle. Now, once again with Barnes, I'd be less keen because of the minutes. I think that will be a major concern once Gordon is back in Gameweek 31. You might also want to consider from Crystal Palace going for both Sarr and Eze. And I think with Arsenal, you might want to go for Gabriel and Raya as a defensive double-up. I don't think the effective ownership of having both of them will be that high. I think having a Brighton defender, if you're looking to bench boost in 32, or Verbruggen in goal, is also a solid shout. So those are some differentials for you to consider. There are more than where that came from, but those are some decent ideas for you. If I wildcard this week, will I have 1 or 2 transfers next week? You will have the same number of transfers you had before you activate the wildcard chip. So if you had 4 transfers before the Gameweek 30 deadline and you wildcard, you will still have 4 free transfers for Gameweek 31. Should I keep Bruno Fernandes or swap for Saka? I'd probably keep Bruno Fernandes for now. He is showing great form in general. But I'd highly recommend buying Saka just in time for Gameweek 33 for sure. And if Bruno Fernandes is the one to sacrifice, then I would do it. But you don't need to make that transfer this week. Easy says my FPL challenge team, Salah captain, Kluivert, Bruno, Sarr, Evanescence, Isak, Mateta. I like the look of it. Of course, I'd be a bit gutted if I sell the likes of Evanescence and, well, even Kluivert and Bruno, and they all end up hauling on my wildcard, but we'll wait and see. Ezequiel says, hola Dylan, para arquero, Emi Martínez o Robert Sánchez. Digo, la verdad, no soy fanático de ambos. Aston Villa, su defensa es bastante floja, en mi opinión. Y también lo mismo se puede aplicar con Chelsea y Robert Sánchez, pero en la jornada 32, Chelsea juega con Ipswich Town, así que si estás usando el bench boost, creo que Robert Sánchez es una buena opción como tu suplente y segundo arquero. Si tuviera que elegir uno sería Robert Sánchez, pero no hay mucho en separarlo. Bench 1, Kluivert, Semenyo, Bowen or Elanga? Elanga. Jacob says start 3 of Gabriel, Gavardio, Munoz, Kirkes, Milenkovic. Munoz, Gavardio, and I'd go for Gabriel. Now for those with Raya in goal, and I'd probably do the same on the wildcard, in that scenario I might go for Milenkovic over Gabriel to kind of diversify my defence. But if you don't have Raya in goal, slight preference for Gabriel, I think, over Milenkovic, but not by much. I showed the clean sheet odds earlier. And whilst Forest are in the top 6, Arsenal are top with 54%, which of course is down to you to kind of interpret. Maybe you've got a different opinion, but yeah, Arsenal do have the best defence in my opinion. Start Burn or Milenkovic? Milenkovic. Do you have Salah? Captain him if you have, and put Mauritius vice. Yeah, I think that's a good strategy. But look, you might feel like City are going to absolutely demolish Leicester, which I've kind of gone for as well. 4-0 victory for them. I think going for Marmoush over Salah is definitely a decent shout. I had to wildcard this week because of injuries and only have bench boost left. I think it probably makes sense to bench boost in 33 because I'll need to include West Ham, Areola, Basaka for 34. Any tips? This is the thing though, and I said this before. If you don't have the free hit for 34, bench boosting in 33 makes it extremely difficult to navigate both of them in the best possible way. So I think even bench boosting a week earlier in 32 does look slightly more appealing because it gives you the extra week with the extra transfer, and I think also more information in terms of injury suspensions going into Game Week 34. I just think it's kind of awkward to navigate those two game weeks by bench boosting in 33 and then just kind of taking hits in 34. It can still work well, but I'm not a big fan of it. Thoughts on triple captain Isak Game Week 32 for the double? Yeah, if I start the triple captaincy left, I think Isak is the kind of standout amongst double Game Week assets from now until the end of the season. Joao Pedro or Vanosen? As mentioned before, I have a slight preference for Joao Pedro, but I think both of them are absolutely solid. I'd go for Milenkovic over Aina. Who takes pens when Cliver isn't on the pitch? Semenyo did it last time in the FA Cup against Everton. I think it's between him and Ivanosen. So, yeah, I think if I had to guess, it'd be Ivanosen and then Semenyo next in line. Because I do believe Ivanosen was on the pitch when Semenyo took that penalty. But if I am mistaken about that, then be sure to correct me. Gibbs White, Dango or Cliver, which one of these two to include in the lineup? I'd go for Cliver still. And I'd favour Dango over Gibbs White, but there is a chance both Cliver and Gibbs White don't feature at all, and you might be down to the bare bones there. Javane says, how's this wildcard team? It leaves nothing in the bank. Raya, Martinez, Kirkes, Gavadio, Munoz, Burn, Gabriel, Salah, Palmer, Cliver, Sarr, Burn, Mateta, Marmoush. Yeah, I like the look of it. Just be a bit careful about Burn because he's got 9 yellow cards. You have mentioned him twice, so I'm just wondering who your other player is there in your defensive line, but overall, I do like the look of it. To be fair, I think you've already mentioned your 5 defenders, haven't you? Oh, yeah, you mentioned 4 of them, so... Okay. Oh, yeah, that's fine. I think you just put them twice. It's absolutely reasonable. Raya Martinez does seem like a lot of money investing in goalkeepers, but it does work well for Game Week 33 on the bench boost, for example. Cliver, even if he's unavailable this week, is a decent option for Game Weeks 31 to 33, so I'm on board with it. It's a good squad. Thoughts on Gakpo? Not a big fan. I'd rather go for Marmoush, Isak, and Mateta. Even a Joao Pedro or a Vanosen would be more tempting over the next couple, but I get it. That's another thing that people can do to be a bit different, going for more Liverpool players on their wildcard or just buying them in, having a second or third asset like Kanate or Gakpo. But I think in the case of Gakpo, there could be some rotation there as well. Savinho and Munoz or Eze and Kirkes? That is a good question. This week, I'd favour Eze and Kirkes. Best 5 players for Game Week 34. I mean, that's a long way away, but I think Isak would definitely be up there facing Ipswich Town. I wouldn't even mind tripling up on Newcastle there. I'd also say Cunha. He'll be back by that stage. So Isak, Cunha. And of course, you wouldn't buy the Brazilian in yet. Let's see. Yeah, difficult one. Yeah, Cole Palmer's always going to be up there against Everton. He actually scored a hat-trick against them last season. So Palmer, Isak and Cunha would be in my top 3. Oh yeah, Salah. Salah's always going to be there, so that's 4. Getting a 5th option, I mean, even from any of those teams I just mentioned, like Newcastle, Liverpool, you can get a second asset like Anthony Gordon, and that completes your kind of top 5 players, but those 4 would definitely be there for me. I think Clive and Bruno Fernandes are decent. I'm not sure if they'd be necessarily top 5, but they are also others to consider. So that's a pretty decent list for you. But I think Cunha's one that maybe you're not thinking about, but you should definitely be under consideration when you approach Game Week 34. Is Martinelli in the wildcard a good idea? I personally wouldn't go there. I think Saka's the best Arsenal attacker by some distance. If you were to go for another asset that's maybe cheaper, maybe Marino's the one, yeah, it's Saka for me. Do you think Marmoush is getting 4 more points than Mbeumo? I think he will, but I couldn't guarantee it to you. I really couldn't. Mbeumo's a good asset. He got a double-digit haul against Newcastle earlier this season, albeit under different circumstances. Would you start Saka or Murphy? Saka. Shreya says, is it worth a -4 for Saka this week, or should I wait for a week? I'd wait a week. How do you know if you should wildcard? Well, if you've got multiple flag players and doubts, which could include Clivert, for example, and you've got no bench cover, if, let's say, worst comes to worst and you're down to 10 men, or you've got a really poor option in your starting 11 like Greaves, in that sort of scenario, I'd consider wildcarding now, to be honest. And I'm in a similar situation where I might have Chris Wood or Robinson coming off my bench, but if it's not Chris Wood, I'm not looking too good maybe all of a sudden, despite having a decent bus team a couple of weeks ago. Why not start Wood just in case he starts? Well, that was my original plan, to be fair, but yeah, I'm just not too sure anyway. I mean, I personally think Chris Wood won't feature in Game Week 30, and with Cliver, I'm less confident now after the update this morning, of course. It was Murphy instead of second burn. Yeah, still really good. I'm also considering Murphy just because of value. I'm probably not going to be able to afford Gordon, whilst also getting the other 14 players I really want. But yeah, Murphy's a decent alternative. I have all the chips except triple captain. When should I use them? Check out my chip strategy guide because that will break it down in detail for you. But essentially, I'd probably recommend something like this. So you could wildcard in Game Week 30 or 31. I would bench boost in either 32 or 33. Free hit in Game Week 34. And then use the assistant manager in either Game Week 35 or 36, depending on your team situation and how you want to set things up. Maybe the amount of transfers you've got available and money in the bank. But yeah, that is my recommendation, I think, with all chips available except the triple captaincy. Ben Stewart says, I had 1 free transfer at the beginning of this week and then took a -4. In the end, I had to use a wild card. Will I have 2 free transfers next week? What happens to budget in this situation? Yes, you'd still have, well, you have 1 free transfer still. It's not like you gain another one. So whatever you had beforehand, you're going to keep. So if you had 3 transfers, you'll have then 3 available for the next deadline after wildcarding. And in your case, you had 1. So you'll still have 1 1 transfer after using the chip. Double up on Crystal Palace with Sarr or go with Rodgers to cover Aston Villa. I'd probably double up on Palace, but only if you're absolutely sure about not going for either Munoz or Jean-Philippe Mateta. Thoughts on Ansi Elanga over the next 3 weeks? As a budget midfielder, he's absolutely fine. I just think there is a lot of kind of hype around him because of the brace he scored against Ipswich Town, his first club brace. In fact, his first brace in his entire career. But yeah, I do like him for the next 3. Is he really a priority for me, though? Not necessarily. I think Jacob Murphy would be more appealing, and other budget midfielders like Ismail Assar, targeting that double in Game Week 32. Hi, Dylan, who's the best defender who costs around 4.2 million or under for the next few game weeks? It's not looking great. You might consider Agbadu, who's very useful for blank Game Week 34. Yeah, it's kind of slim pickings in my opinion, but that's the one that kind of stands out to me. Would you favour Glasner, assistant manager 31 to 33? Yes, in an ideal world it would be Glasner. I think Eddie Howe and Arteta are also good managers to pick in that time frame, but if you've also got other chips to use like the bench boost, let's say you've got a full house except the triple captaincy, in that case I'd maybe consider using the assistant manager around Game Week 35/36, but yeah, Glasner is my favourite in isolation for sure. Sarr and Evanussen or Mateta and Villa mid already have Eze. Yeah, probably Mateta and a Villa mid in this case, and Rodgers is the safest pick. Sell Wood, Trent or Clivert? Well, Trent is definitely out for the long term, and he's also quite expensive considering his position as well. So I'd prioritise selling Trent first, then Chris Wood, and then Clivert. So Dutapus's wildcard team, keep Evanussen or Marmoush. I'd go for Marmoush, personally. Allison or Sells? Sells. I will triple captain next game week in Game Week 31. Well, it depends on your chips, to be fair. And it could still work fairly well, but I'd recommend using it on Isak in 32, if possible. So yeah, let's get this up. Yeah, 1 second. It's just the chat has kind of dropped out. So yeah, we were getting very close to the deadline. I'm going to put a poll out, but of course there is this question by Easy. So how many teams will double in Gameweek 33? 4 teams will double in Gameweek 33, and there are no blanks, of course. That will be the case though in 34. Now there is the possibility that Brentford Forest will also fall under Gameweek 33, so that will be another double. But it's more likely that they will feature and their game remains in 34. That's been covered as well in my videos. Thoughts on Nuri? Decent for the blank Gameweek with a great fixture on paper against Leicester. Decent fixtures beforehand, so I'm not completely against them on the wildcard, but yeah, Wolves are still one of those teams I don't fully trust, despite the fact that Vitor Pereira has done a decent job since taking over. Thoughts on Diaz? Not for me. I wouldn't recommend Luis Diaz. What do I do with Trent? Sell him, ideally. And I think Munoz is the standout replacement. Isak or Mateta for triple captain in 32? Isak. Pedro says, hey Dylan, I have a decent team for this week besides Dango, Cliver and Vissa in the 11. Would you save the wildcard this game week and make a free transfer Dango to Sarr or Eze? It's a difficult one because, as you mentioned, it's a decent team, and even the players you mentioned, like Dango, Cliver and Vissa, they're still solid options, assuming they all start, but that is a big if, especially in the case of Cliver right now. I think Dango will start, just to kind of give you my opinion on it. And of course, Vissa is a nailed-on player there for Brentford. I still think I'd wildcard, but if you think, you know what, nah, I just want to save a 31, I completely get it. And I think 2 of those 3 players will start anyway. Yeah, it's possible, Mahmood. It's very possible. At the moment, I haven't wildcarded yet. So this is my pre-wildcard team with my transfer used, and I've got no transfers remaining. So it will be a -4 hit for each extra transfer I make. So thank you to those that have liked the stream and showed support to the channel. Let's get the stream up to more likes. Let's get up to 100 plus to begin with, and then 200 by the end. And let's push on towards new goals like 33,000 subscribers. It'd be greatly appreciated as we approach doubles like Gameweek 33 and 32, of course. But our main focus will be Gameweek 30 right now. And I will put a poll on the channel. And maybe this will help a lot of people watching this stream as well. So with Kluivert, Palmer, Wood, and Mikalenko doubtful. All right, so I'm going to put this poll out and let's answer some more questions. Yeah, Kluivert is yellow flagged. He felt some issues after the game. I did cover the injury updates with some graphics and stuff like that, so I'll go back to that in a short while. He's not definitively out, and based on what Iraola said, it doesn't seem to be a long-term issue, so I'd be very confident he's back by Gameweek 31 or 32. MSB 10 says pick 2 goalkeepers from Raya, Martinez, Areola, and Sells. I'd go for Raya and Areola if you're doubling, or sorry, if you're bench boosting in 33, for sure. But if you don't have the free hit, I'm less keen on bench boosting in 33, and as a result, would you want to go for Areola when he faces Liverpool away in Gameweek 32, where for me that's a very underrated Gameweek to bench boost? That's something I'd maybe consider. A lot of people will go for Raya Martinez, I get it. I'm just not that keen on Aston Villa defensively, and it does seem like a lot of money to invest in those goalkeepers. But I think generally speaking, I'd go for Raya and Areola. Asensio or Rodgers? Rodgers still for me. I just think the minutes are far more secure. Yeah, let's talk Vignal. There is an update as covered before, so I'll go for it one more time. So Eddie Howe said this about Anthony Gordon. He has some nasty bruising around his thigh, but he's up and running and feeling quite good. He has not trained with the group yet, so we anticipate he'll do that within the next few days. Of course, he's suspended right now, but he will be available just in time for that plum fixture against Leicester City away from home. So yeah, I think he will play next week. Maybe the minutes are managed a little bit. It all depends on how the injury evolves and how he feels over the next week or so. Marmoush and Sarr or Saka and Mateta for Cunha and Mbuma for the next 4 game weeks. That's an extremely difficult one, to be fair. I'd still lean towards Saka and Mateta, but not by much. Insane Gamer says, do I quit FPL? I'm 2.7 million, and I hate that every single decision goes against me. And this is why I copy teams, but I don't want to do it because I can't make my own decisions. Yeah, look, ultimately the most important thing is to enjoy yourself when playing FPL. And in terms of copying, I get it. I get why you feel that way, but there's not really much enjoyment in copying for me anyway. Everyone's different. And making your own decisions, even if it goes wrong, of course, you ultimately want it to go right and enjoy yourself, but the whole decision-making process is quite fun to me. So when things go tits up, you kind of complain about it, explain your thought process, and you can have a laugh about it afterwards. But yeah, ultimately, I'd say no, don't quit FPL, but try to enjoy the game. I mean, if you don't, then there's not really much point to the actual purpose of playing FPL in general. But yeah, that is the most important thing. Try and enjoy the process and having a good time, irrespective of your rank and how things seem to be going on a week-to-week basis. I'm wildcarding in 31, so for this week, only do you prefer Vanossen or Mateta? It's still Mateta for me, but it's a close call. Gvardiol or Van Dijk? Gvardiol. Trend replacement? I think Gabriel or Gvardiol would be very sound. Daniel Munoz would be maybe the ideal one, who's even cheaper, and he doubles in 32. Yeah, Palmer should be available. He's been training since Thursday, Friday. Now, he has been out for a couple of weeks, so his minutes could be managed. There is still a slight concern about him, but I think he'll start. Would you go for Trippier and why? No, I would rather go for Livramento because I just don't think Trippier offers enough of an upside like he did in previous seasons to justify the extra 1 million. And also, he's more of an injury risk compared to Livramento and Dan Burn. But if you had a lot of money in the bank and you were able to go for this sort of punt, I'm not against it. So I'm not trying to talk people out of being different. I just think Livramento offers better value for money. Murphy or Rodgers on a wild card? Murphy. Who would you suggest for Trent? Defenses as follows: Munoz, Gabriel, House, and Castagna. Gvardiol would be pretty decent in my opinion. Pedro, yeah, I covered this question earlier, mate. I would recommend using the wild card now, but maybe you feel a little bit differently. Kluivert or Semenyo? Kluivert. Are you wildcarding? It's very likely, yeah. I think the Kluivert doubt, even though I might keep him on the wildcard, it just means I've got no bench cover if Chris Wood also misses Gameweek 30, which is very likely in my opinion. So yeah, that is unfortunately the way things are going. Nashmi puts his team. What do you think of this wildcard squad? If it needs any changes, advise. So yeah, look, 2 good goalkeepers. I'd maybe argue you're putting a little bit too much money in that goalkeeper position, but it's a solid goalkeeper pairing, especially for Gameweek 33 if you're looking to bench boost by that stage. I would maybe reconsider Timber. And I think the worst thing about your defensive line is the fact you're doubling up on Villa defensively. I would not recommend that at all. I think 1 is more than enough. So I would maybe recommend Konsa out to a different defender entirely. It also, a lot depends on your remaining chips. So if you don't have the free hit in Gameweek 34, then perhaps you want to go for an 8 Nuri, who's got a good fixture that week against Leicester. So those things are also very important. I think Munoz, Livramento, very solid. Gvardiol as well. I like your midfield and forward line, even with Kluivert being a doubt. But I think your goalkeepers and defence could do with a bit of tweaking. And with Timber, I just think with Ben White there and Arsenal prioritising the Champions League, I could see Timber being benched in one of the Premier League games coming up. So if you can stomach that, then fair enough. But Gabriel would be my preference if you have the money. And I would definitely recommend trimming down your Aston Villa defensive coverage. I think that's way too much, but the rest is very strong. Is Palmer back? Yeah, I've been asked this quite a lot. I think he'll start. I could be wrong about this. And to be honest, if Cole Palmer was definitively out or it looked like he was very doubtful, then I just pull the wild card, immediately. I just really like having him for the next couple of game weeks, then moving him on to Saka if possible. What are your thoughts on Foden? I really like him for this week against Leicester. I'm less keen on him long term, and if I'm comparing him to Saka and Palmer, I know they're both more expensive, but there's not a huge difference in price. I'd highly recommend going in that direction instead. Do I keep Kluivert on the wild card? I'll probably end up doing that. whether I wildcard now or tonight after the deadline has passed. Yeah, I think Cliver is definitely worth keeping on the wildcard. There is no double in Gameweek 33, but still a decent fixture. The same goes for blank Gameweek 34 as well. Savio or Asensio? Savio, but not by much. I think both of them are rotation risks. Trent Munoz or Gvardiol? Yeah, for this week, I mean, it's close, but with Palace doubling in 32 as well, I'm going to say Munoz. How do you rate Rodgers, Asensio, and Rashford? I think Rodgers is still top because of the minutes. With that fixture against Southampton, for example, for Aston Villa very soon, they've got Paris Saint-Germain in between. So I just think Villa will have their eyes set on those legs first. And I think Rodgers is the most likely to start both matches, in my opinion. So that could end up backfiring. Maybe he ends up getting a rest against Southampton, which he probably deserves and needs. But yeah, I just think from a minutes perspective, he's the most reliable from the lot. Yeah, I think the main reason why people are going for Raya Martinez on the wild card is because of the double game week in 33. Villa will likely double by that stage, but it is against Newcastle and Man City. Arsenal have a very appealing double game week should it happen against Crystal Palace and Ipswich Town. So I think Raya's a great pick. Martinez not so much. Aina or Livramento? For this week, Aina. If I'm picking one on the wild card, it's Livramento because of the double in 32 and better fixtures overall. Who would you get as a fifth midfielder for 8 million? Have Salah, Saka, Sarr, Murphy already? I still like Cliver. I know he's doubtful for today, for this week, but I still like him. I wouldn't even mind doubling up on Newcastle or Crystal Palace, but if you've got Mateta and Isak already, a triple up in the attack seems a bit overkill, and it also means having no Livramento or Munoz at the back. But yeah, I think Eze would be very appealing to me, actually, if you could build towards that sort of thing. So thank you for the super chat, Omar. Would you wildcard this week with Kepa, Munoz, Gabriel, Aït-Nouri, Bruno, Salah, Mbumo, Palmer, Evanussen, Mateta, Vissa? No free transfers. It's a good team, so I get why you're a bit conflicted about it. In terms of this week only, I'm not a big fan of Aït-Nouri. I think he's very good for Gameweek 34. Bruno Fernandes has tough fixtures coming up, so he is sellable. The same goes for Mbumo. And I'm not against keeping these players, by the way, especially Cole Palmer, who for me will start against Tottenham, and he's a great option. Evanussen, yeah, good for the next two for sure. So I get why you're kind of considering holding off a little bit, but you can get a better goalkeeper in general, even for this week potentially, albeit Kepa does face Ipswich Town at home. You can bolster your midfield and your attack with the likes of Marmoush, for example, and you don't have Isak. I'd lean towards wildcarding. Like I mentioned before, you've got a decent squad. It can definitely compete, but you're making a lot of different upgrades, and I think you'll end up wildcarding in 31 anyways and bringing in pretty much the same players like Isak, for example. So I'd recommend wildcarding now. Would you keep Bruno on a wildcard? I think he could still return, then move to Saka when he's back. If I end up wildcarding, I probably won't go to Bruno Fernandes. And if I end up not going for Saka, it will be Cole Palmer in my ranks, and then I move him on to the Arsenal talisman in Gameweek 33. So that is my kind of take on it. Well, FPL fella, I've gone for Salah top, kind of boring, I know, and Marmoush is second, but it's a really close one, I think, this week. If it was Haaland, I know it's a little bit different. I think I was going to put him top on my captaincy list. With Marmoush, it's a little bit, it's not really the exact same, but I'll show the captaincy list very soon again, and I got both of them in the top spots, so very good question. Would you start Joao Pedro or Murphy? That is extremely close. I think both of them have a high ceiling this week. I would go for Joao Pedro. Alisson or Sells? Sells. Bench Cliver or Gibbs-White? I'd bench Gibbs-White. Yeah, Timber has been mentioned a few times in the stream. I think he could be benched around the time that Arsenal play Real Madrid, so Gameweek 32, 33. And I think Ben White could start in those Premier League matches. I just don't really think it makes a lot of sense for Timber to start every single game there when White is equally as good as a right back, if not even better. So yeah, I think Timber is a bit of a rotation risk in the coming weeks. I know he hasn't been this season, but I think things will change slightly in the coming weeks here. On a wildcard, do I drop Cliver given the 75% news or play Murphy and bench Cliver? So I'll probably end up wildcarding in the next hour 50 minutes basically. And I think I'll end up keeping Cliver. That is the most likely scenario, but you'll end up seeing what I, do with my team. But I just look at the alternatives in the midfield, and I still think Cliver's a better option, especially when I'm bench boosting or planning to in Gameweek 32. Start 2, bench 1, Vissa, Cliver, Elanga. I'd start Cliver just in case, and I think I'd go for Vissa. I've gone for a high-scoring game between Newcastle and Brentford. Whilst with Forest United, I've gone for a kind of low-scoring affair, but maybe I'm wrong about it. Cliver is not definitively out, but there is a chance he misses the game. So it's up in the air. That's why he's yellow flagged and not red flagged. Who would you include in a wildcard team if you only have a bench boost left? I have one free transfer next week. So yeah, only the bench boost left. It's still quite similar, to be fair. And by the way, I've been on this screen for a long time. So let's go to fpl.team. So this is my current squad, which isn't looking too great. So I'd go for something like this and look to bench boost in Gameweek 32, because with no free hit in 34, I just think it's a bit awkward to bench boost in 33 and then go into 34 and try to optimize your squad and have a full 11 and take a few hits in the process. I think it does make it slightly easier if you bench boost a week earlier. So you can go for something like this. I'm likely to go for this sort of structure. So Raya in goal with Verbruggen as the backup goalkeeper, Gvardiol, Munoz and Milenkovic, Salah, Kluivert, Sarr, Saka, Isak, Marmoush, Mateta, the likes of Murphy, Gabriel and Livramento on the bench. I've got roughly 0.8 million in the bank. Very soon you'll find out how much I've actually got because some price changes have happened overnight. But basically you can then get to something like this. Even the expected points looks very promising on FPL.team, but you can't judge it too much. But I do like the look of it, I have to say. Injuries might happen, suspensions, and you're thrown a curveball in FPL when you think you've got things sorted. But I think that looks fairly solid. Then in Gameweek 33, you've got a solid platform. And you've got 8 doublers, for example. You've got Kluivert, Salah and Isak as your single Gameweek options. And you've got free transfers to maybe get that to 11. But just be careful about getting too greedy about the doublers, because in blank Gameweek 34, this is where things get very problematic. So if you end up, let's say we get rid of the free hit here. If you just like roll on all the way until Gameweek 34, you can have 4 free transfers and then build a decent number of players for the blank Gameweek as well. So you might want to reconsider 1 or 2 picks here. So maybe go for 8 Nuri, for example. And by the way, it does say here Milenkovic will blank. I mean, the projections do show that it's likely that Milenkovic will feature. So actually, let me get that up. Maybe that hasn't been addressed. So let's set these predictions. So yeah, now you can see Milenkovic is featuring, so that does make it slightly easier. Not much better, but the more the merrier. And then you've got 4 free transfers and you can replace Gabriel. Well, you don't need to replace Gabriel, to be fair. I'd prioritize selling the Palace assets. So Munoz, Sarr, and potentially Gvardiol on one of these forwards, potentially. That's something I'd look to build towards. But it's a fairly decent wild card. Strong bench boost in 32, in my opinion. And you can still have a decent setup for blank Gameweek 34 as well. So let's now go back to my FPL team. And I'll be honest, I think it's just time to start locking things in because I don't want to leave it to the last minute and panic. So, Raya, Verbruggen, as I just showed you with the website fpl.team. Verbruggen with that Gameweek 32 fixture against Leicester. If I was looking to bench boost in 33, I'd then just go for Areola facing Southampton. But I just think if I look at my setup and the way I want a wildcard this week, it does seem more appealing to bench boost in 32. So then with that in mind, Gabriel, Munoz will stay. Colwill, Mikalenko and Robinson will all be sold. And I can bring in Robinson when he faces Southampton away in Gameweek 34 on the free hit. So that could also work fairly well for me. I can bring in Gvardiol. Unfortunately, I have to sell the likes of Mbumo. Palmer potentially. Although, watch this space, I might end up keeping him and buy Saka in a couple of weeks. Just be very careful for those, especially about the free hit, about booking in too many transfers. So from that sort of perspective, you might want to just go for Saka from the get-go and forget about Palmer, unfortunately, which might backfire in the short term. So I'm going to bring in Marmoush and Mateta up front. Very template, I know. And I'm going to bring in Ismaila Sarr in the midfield. I'll keep Palmer for now and see how the budget looks, but it's going to be very tight, I think, with the other moves I'm planning to make. Jacob Murphy. And then in this defensive line, Milenkovic. And it leaves 4.8 million in the bank. It's not too shabby. Since I'm planning to free in 34 anyway, I'm not really that keen on Ait Nouri. I can just bring him in using that chip. So, yeah, that gives me enough money to go for Livramento. That's kind of what I'm looking at with a wild card. I've still got Kluivert and Palmer, 2 yellow flags. It does seem a bit strange, I get it. But I'm expecting Palmer to start. And then I can move him on to Saka in Gameweek 33. So if we actually go back to fpl.team and visualize how things will look like exactly. So let's get rid of Saka here for Cole Palmer. Is that the same? Let me just quickly check. 0.2, 0.3. Yeah, so let's see. Change transfer price. I mean, yeah, something like this. Just so it reflects the amount of money I've got in the bank. 0.3 million in the bank. Okay. Then Gameweek 31. Palmer away to Brentford. I'm quite happy not to have Saka at Goodison Park, and I think Arsenal will still have their eye on the Real Madrid game. Then I can have Munoz, Gabriel, Livramento, all with decent fixtures, especially in the case of Gabriel and Livramento. Raya in goal. Yeah, decent midfield and attack, I have to say. A trip up in Newcastle against Leicester. Very solid bench as well. I could even bench boost in 31, to be fair, with Sarr, Gvardiol and Milenkovic, but the Gameweek 32 bench boost looks very decent in my opinion. Yeah, and I can keep Palmer for Ipswich Town at home. And then I can bring in Saka for Cole Palmer. Now, by that stage, his price will have gone up quite significantly. But, yeah, he's obviously cheaper than Palmer. It makes it very easy for me to do that. In terms of captaincy and stuff like that, I'd go for Saka or Marmoush, I think. We'll get to that when the time comes. Salah, obviously having a great single Gameweek fixture. But look at this bench compared to the 32 one. Verbruggen away to Brentford. Murphy and Livramento away to Aston Villa. And Milenkovic away to Tottenham. It's not bad, but it pales in comparison to what it looks like in Gameweek 32 with Verbruggen, Kluivert, Gabriel, Milenkovic, all with home fixtures and all of decent quality. So yeah, that is my current plan to wildcard in the next 40 minutes or so before the deadline, ideally. And I've just got a few question marks in terms of keeping Cole Palmer or just going directly to Saka and saving the free transfer in the process, and perhaps a few other things here and there, like my backup goalkeeper. But I have to say, if I plan on bench boosting in 32, I think Verbruggen might be one of the better goalkeepers to pick. I look at the alternatives there, and I'm not as appealed by them, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, that's the way things are looking right now. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. I think you have made your feelings abundantly clear in the poll, and a lot of you are feeling the same way. A Gameweek 30 wildcard is becoming increasingly more popular. Yeah, getting Bowen on the wildcard looks good, especially to target that Southampton game in 33, and he's got decent fixtures afterwards. But if you are bench boosting in 32, I'm not a big fan of having 2 or 3 West Ham players, even Bowen, with Liverpool away. I really like your wildcard squad there, mate. Yeah, it's fairly template, you could say. A few differentials like Verbruggen. But yeah, I also like the look of it. It makes me more tempted to just activate the chip now and get it over with. Think I should start Kluivert anyway. How would you arrange the bench of Saka, Livramento and Murphy? Yeah, I'd start Kluivert anyway. But over Saka, difficult one. I wouldn't bench Saka. Murphy will be ahead of Livramento, so the Newcastle defender will be last, and I'd find a way to include Saka in your starting 11. Who's the best budget midfielder? Depends on a lot of circumstances, like your chip strategy and stuff like that, but Jacob Murphy will be up there. I think Sarr is probably first, then Murphy second. If I have free transfers and use my free hit, will I have free transfers in the next game week? Yes, you will. The same goes for the wildcard. Will Saka start? That's what the reports indicate, Sam. So Time Sport have suggested yesterday, and even as early as Sunday, that Saka will start against Fulham. And Arteta's comments yesterday are also very bullish. I'm very confident that Saka will get the nod there. You can wait, don't get me wrong, and Saka is 9th in my captaincy list. It is a tough fixture against Fulham after all, but yeah, I think he'll start. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. With Kluivert being a doubt, wouldn't that open the door to a Danga or Ouattara start? I think Danga will start anyway, because you've also got Tavernier, who I think is going to miss Gameweek 30. But yeah, for those that have Dango, I'd be fairly confident he starts. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, with Cliver, it is a bit shame. It's a big shame there. It's a good point you make there, but I just think Dango might start anyway. Wan-Bissaka 8 Nuri, Bowen or Diaz on the wildcard. Bowen, and I would say 8 Nuri, especially if you aren't free hitting in 34. 8 Nuri helps you there a lot against Leicester, and Bowen with a plum fixture in Gameweek 33 against Southampton. Hi Dylan, hope you're well. Likewise Adil. Thoughts on Wanyeri over Cliver? I wouldn't recommend Wanyeri. He might start in Gameweek 30 by the way, but his minutes will be all over the place from now until the end of the season. Palmer Dylan, Saka is a... I prefer Palmer over the next couple. Up until Gameweek 33 basically. Then from that stage, I'd go to Saka with that double in mind. Wei Seng says Robinson, Branthwaite to Munoz or Wood plus Robinson, Branthwaite to Marmoush and Mitchell Lacroix from -4. Yeah, I'm just wondering what the circumstances would be. So if you don't take the hit and just Brian Munoz, who would start for you instead of, let's say, Chris Wood, if he ends up missing out? Who would come in for you? But without knowing the context, I would go for the free transfer and buy Munoz. Fair says, would you do Wood and Haaland to Isak Mateta or Marmoush from -4? Otherwise, I'm thinking of just wildcarding. What would you do? I mean, that's a decent -4, and I'm not sure about the rest of your team, but if it looks fairly similar to a wildcard, then fair enough. But I don't know that. So without knowing your midfield and defense, it's difficult for me to say, but I'd probably lean towards wildcarding because it does prevent the hit, and you can then fix other issues in your team, which might include your second goalkeeper, 2 defenders, and a couple of midfielders there as well. -8 Bruno to Sarr, Wood to Mateta, and Vista to Marmoush. Don't have the funds for a straight Wood to Marmoush transfer. I'm in a similar boat to you, mate. If you got the wild card, I'd suggest using it instead of taking a -8 hit. But if you don't, then that's where things get a bit awkward. But perhaps I'd suggest a -4 instead of a -8 and keeping one of those players, for example, Chris Wood, because I get that Bruno to Sarr funds the other moves, like Vista to Marmoush. And if you've got a decent player, it could even be a defender, to fill your starting 11, then you don't need to take the extra hit, in my opinion. But Braga at home to Leicester or Martinez away against Southampton? Well, I'm personally favouring Verbruggen at the moment. I think both Brighton and Villa can be quite unreliable defensively, but Aston Villa will also have their eyes set on the PSG games in the Champions League, so rotation could be possible. And I think Southampton could score in that game, whilst with Leicester against Brighton, I'd be more confident of a Seagulls clean sheet. So Verbruggen's my answer. I like your plan to keep Palmer and swap to Saka in 33. That could be a good differential play. Lots will have sold Palmer already, for Haaland before he was injured, or for Saka now. Yeah, I like both strategies. I mean, with Saka, it does save a transfer later down the line, but I just look at his fixtures in the next 3, and whilst he looks good, I just think Palmer looks even more appealing. So that's why I'm tempted to keep Palmer, but then I've still got 2 yellow flag players on my wildcard squad, so there are pros and cons behind it. Hey Dylan, should I start Cliver and risk that he'll start, or go for Elanga? I'd start Cliver. Why is no one going for Semenyo? He's on 9 yellow cards, 1 more and he'll be suspended. Cliver's on penalties, he's much more consistent, so there's a few reasons why Cliver is the better pick. Start Bowen or 8 Nuri this game week? Bowen for me. Chris Richards is out for Palace. That probably reduces their chances of keeping a clean sheet. They've still got decent defensive depth though, and Richards hasn't started every single game this season. But it's a good point. I mean, it's not ideal to have 1 less body in there, but yeah, against Southampton, I'm still very confident they'll keep a clean sheet and make it 7 in a row across all competitions in away matches, which is a record in English football. But yeah, the other away games will be a lot tougher than that, facing the likes of Arsenal, Newcastle and Man City. -4 to get Pickford out of my net? No, I don't think so. Because even if you get a clean sheet from your replacement, you're not really gaining many points unless they get saves and bonus. Crucial, Gordon or Murphy? If money was no issue, I'd pick Gordon, but I'm probably going to go for Murphy in the end because of how I want to structure my wildcard. Foden or Savio? Foden. Timber or Gabriel? Gabriel. So I'm basically going for the more expensive player every single time. If I had to pick one where you have to go for the cheaper option, it'd be Murphy over Gordon. It's Robinson, Branthwaite that's starting. The remaining players are Wood, Branthwaite, Williams and Robinson. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of having those players starting. I know Robinson can still get something against Arsenal, but even if he does, you're still looking at less than 6 points, in my opinion. Yeah, I can see why you want to take the -4 hit, but if you've got the wildcard, mate, I'd highly recommend using it. Play Kanate or Milenkovic. I've gone for clean sheets for both of them, actually. I think Forest are slightly more likely. That's my opinion on it. Thank you, Shavain. Massively appreciated. Keep Clivert with Rogers, Murphy, bench cover, 4.8 million in the bank, or buy back Palmer and have 0.1 million in the bank. I'd probably go for Palmer. It's risky, but I think it could really pay off for you. Christian says, hey Dylan, what would you have done differently this season so far, if anything? Well, probably a lot, but it's probably not good to look back too much. I mean, reflecting and kind of recognizing mistakes and learning from them is obviously a good way to do it, but I haven't really thought about it too much. There's a lot of game weeks where it seems like I've made maybe one or two bad calls, or there has been a 50-50 decision and I've kind of got the wrong end of the stick, but I'll have to think about that. Maybe towards the end of the season in like a retrospective live stream or video, I can think about that in more detail, but there certainly will be some that spring to mind once I go through every single game week. As an Arsenal fan, how are you feeling now that Saka's back? Well, I'm more confident, I'm more optimistic, especially for the Champions League, but yeah, I mean, it's still, being realistic, it's probably not going to be enough, but gotta have a bit of hope, and yeah, I mean, Arsenal have a better chance now than they would have without Saka, the best player that Arsenal have. -12, Haaland, Wood, Gibbs-White, and Foden out to Marmoush, Isak, Salah, and Saka. If you've got the wildcard insane gamer, I'd be pulling the trigger without a shadow of a doubt. Good transfers overall. I think selling Foden this week, I know you are selling into a better asset, but that could be painful. So I'd recommend keeping Foden for this week at least and sell the other three potentially. I think Palmer and Mikalenko will start. Kluivert maybe on the bench and sub in over 70 minutes. Wood maybe misses the Man United game. That's a pretty decent prediction. I'm in a similar boat to you. Yeah, I think Palmer, I'm very confident he will start. Mikalenko, I'm less sure about. Same with Kluivert, but yeah, Chris Wood, I think, will miss out. I'd be quite surprised, actually, if he does play. So I'm just checking X and seeing if there are any updates, but I don't think there is anything. If you do see anything on X or anything like that, then be sure to let me know. I'm saving wildcard for 31 as a deal. I've done Wood to Marmoush as a 1 week punt and planning on starting Kluivert, and worst case scenario, Semenyo comes on for him. Or would you start Semenyo instead? I'd go for Kluivert. Yeah, that would be my 2 cents on it. Semenyo is very good coverage actually this week, and you can always sell him on the Gimmick Fay 1 wildcard. Thank you, Rai. No problem there. Could Nketiah's current form reduce Mateta's minutes? Well, for one of the doubles in either Gimmick 32 or 33, I do think Nketiah gets a start, and I think Gimmick 33 is more likely. So with Jean-Philippe Mateta, yeah, you look at the next 5 matches, I think he starts 4 of them, not the whole 5. Would you get Kusanov on the wildcard? Not for me. The only C defender I'd consider is Gvardiol because of the attacking threat and the bonus points potential, and even then, he is a lot of money, I get it. Kusanov is significantly cheaper. In an ideal world, it would be Rico Lewis, but he's just nowhere near nailed on enough to advocate for that sort of thing. Is it necessary to bench boost in Gimmick Fay 2 since there are a lot of doubles? It's not necessary, but I've just kind of looked at it myself with my provisional Gimmick Fay wildcard squad, and I just prefer the Gimmick Fay 2 bench boost. And I also think for those without the free hit, which makes Gimmick Fay 4 even more difficult to navigate, bench boosting in 33 is going to be very awkward. You know, you've got that double in 33, you bench boost, you've got an entire 50-man squad and try to get as many doublers as possible, but then a lot of those players will blank in 34, so it makes it very difficult to find that balance. So that's why Gimmick Fay 2 looks really appealing in terms of the bench boost. No leaks at the moment, no, as far as I'm aware. Is Nkuku playing? I believe so, but Jackson is very close to returning. It might even be against Tottenham as a substitute, or maybe he starts the game, but I think Nkuku, he's definitely going to get minutes. Is he going to start? I'd lean towards yes, but I don't know enough about Jackson's injury. I'm more confident about Palmer starting instead. Best time to use the assistant manager? In isolation, it's Game Week 31 to then cover the doubles in 32 and 33 respectively. But if you've got other chips remaining, you can't use any of them whilst the assistant manager is active. So be very careful about that. Would you sell Kluivert to Eze or Wood to Mateta and bench Kluivert, planning to wildcard next game week? So this week is just a 1 week punt, player target, plus which one to bench between Kluivert, Joao Pedro and Mbeumo. I get your question, but yeah, I'd still keep Kluivert, I think. I'd be more keen on doing Chris Wood to Mateta out of the two. I know I'm really bullish on Eze this week, but if Kluivert does start, it'd be a bit awkward to sell him, in my opinion. And there's still a chance he does. He hasn't been ruled out definitively, and the comments by Arila does suggest that it's not a long-term issue, so there is a chance he still makes it for Game Week 30. Obviously, if he ends up missing out, then I think Eze would be a great transfer in, but it's also just risky in of itself to sell Kluivert there. I have no wildcard, I'm done. Look, you're not done. You still got a chance, and hopefully you can build some momentum and get those green arrows. And I think the hits and the transfers you're taking now can really help you for the doubles and blanks coming up. I sold Foden early. That's fair enough. But the players you're bringing in are very good, and Saka is a superior asset long term. Hi Dylan, is Dango predicted to start against Ipswich? I haven't seen any lineups, I'll be honest, for Bournemouth, but I think Dango will start. Tavernier is a doubt, and also with Kluivert also being doubtful, that does open the door for Dango Ouattara. Would Arsenal get a double game week? Yeah, in 33. That's why on the wild card I'm looking at 2 or 3 Arsenal assets, so Saka in the midfield, Gabriel and David Raya. How nailed is Trippier? Fairly nailed on. My issue with Trippier is the fact that he's significantly more expensive than the likes of Livramento and Byrne, and he's also more of an injury risk. If you look at his injury record this season, it has been not very, let's say reassuring, so to speak, and the same goes for last season. Yeah, I think Palmer will start, John David. Yeah. Bench Visser or Kluivert? I'd bench Visser. I'll be honest, I mean, you'll probably have Visser come on for Kluivert anyway, but yeah. For those that think Kluivert will be on the bench and have a 1 point off, that's possible, but I don't think that'll be the case personally. I think Kluivert either starts or doesn't play at all. That's my take on it. Need a replacement for Haaland. Who do I pick? Isak is by far the standout for me. Then you're looking at Mateta and Marmoush, who are next in line. I have said before I'd lean towards Mateta, but I also think Mateta could be benched in one of the Game Week 33 fixtures. Of course, that's assuming Palace double, which is very likely. And maybe against Arsenal there, we could see Mateta making way for Nketiah, with the FA Cup semi-final being prioritised there for Crystal Palace. Saka, Evanilson and Henderson, or Eze, Mateta and Raya. Eze, Mateta and Raya for me. But I do like the Saka route, of course. It's just I'd go for the other trio instead. Start 3 from Gabriel, Kanate, Munoz and Milenkovic. I'd consider benching Gabriel here. They are top of the clean sheet odds this week, but if you got Raya and goal already, I'd 100% go for Kanate, Munoz and Milenkovic instead. Hi Dylan, start 2 of Mbeumo, Palmer and Kluivert. Palmer and Kluivert, and just have Mbeumo on the bench if needed. How many Mateta minutes against Southampton? I'd say around 70. Start 1 of Isak, Bowen, Saka. Isak. League lineups just posted days back. We might get early news. Okay, I'm not sure how reliable they are, but we'll wait and see. Thoughts on the wildcard team, says MMK. Henderson, Sells, Kirkes, Munoz, Aina, Milenkovic, Byrne, Bruno, Mbeumo, Murphy, Matoma, Salah, Mateta, Isak and Marmoush. I like the look of it. It's good to see some variety as well behind these wildcards. For example, you've got a different goalkeeper pairing to me, and other people will have something completely different with Martinez in goal and stuff like that. Yeah, I like the look of it. I mean, in terms of nitpicking, with your... Let's see. So Byrne is on 9 yellow cards. I'd be slightly concerned about that. I'd also trim down one of your Forest defenders because you've got Sells and 2 options there. That's a little bit too much in my opinion, and I'd highly recommend going for an Arsenal defender if possible. They will likely double in Game Week 33. So yeah, I think making a few alterations there could definitely help you. Your attacking line is really strong. Keeping in Boom is a nice differential, so I do like it. I would recommend having one of Saka or Palmer though, if possible, and that would require possibly selling Bruno and Mbeumo at the same time, so you cheap out one of them instead, and then upgrade the other to a Palmer or Bukayo Saka. But that's my opinion on it, and it does lead you towards a more template path, which you might want to avoid. So yeah, it's a good squad, but I'd reconsider a few things there. Let's see what we've got next. Thank you, Ahmed. Yeah, just let me know with a normal question or message what you wanted to say, but I appreciate the super chat. Start Palmer or Cliver? It'd be Palmer. Yeah, good question. I think I've already used it, by the way, in Gameweek 2, but if I still had the chip, I'd be using it in Gameweek 32. Unfortunately, a lot of these game weeks, like 32 and 33, are ideal times to use the assistant manager, the triple captain, and the bench boost, but you can't use all of them at the same time, so you have to prioritize. But if you have no other clashes and you're happy with the way your team is set up and how you can really approach other game weeks, I'd consider using in 32 on Isak. How many hits would you take before considering wildcard? Well, even a -4, because, for example, a lot of people who are wildcarding in 31 will have a similar setup to those who are wildcarding now, albeit with more information. You can make 1 or 2 tweaks, and that could put you in good stead. But yeah, definitely -8 and above. I'd just play the wildcard of 100%. Start 2 of Kirkes, Cliver, and Sarr. Cliver and Sarr for me. I'd bench Kirkes reluctantly. Eze and Foden or Sarr and Saka? Sarr and Saka long term. Both of them are really good though. And for this week only, yeah, I do like Eze and Foden, I really do. But looking a bit longer term, I'm going to go for Saka and Eze. Sorry, Saka and Sarr. Gabriel or Gvardiol for this week only? Gvardiol for me. I started Neto or I go Beto to Marmoush with a -4. I'd go to Marmoush for a -4, but I'm quite bullish on him anyway. Yeah, for me, Maliner, it's Salah, but Marmoush is a close second. I'll go to those graphics very soon as well. So let me go for this one more question. Of course, I'm going to keep on going through more of them before the deadline, but I'm going to show some different graphics and also potentially activate the wildcard now and get it over with. So just wanted to say welcome back, and it's good to see you again here, bud. Oh, fair enough, Ahmed. And yeah, no worries about the retraction. That's happened to me a lot of times on YouTube. It can be quite finicky, but it's good to see you here again, and I hope to see you on board for the reaction streams. Hopefully there is one tomorrow, if not on Thursday. And for UCL Fantasy, of course, next Tuesday, I'll be going live for match day 13. Yeah, Saka's in the squad. Yes, he is in the squad. That's something else I forgot to mention. Several different reliable sources on X did indicate that Saka was spotted with the squad. So yeah, thank you for the update as well and reminding me. And of course, we did get the updates beforehand suggesting that Saka will start, according to Time Sport, for example. Haribo, good to see you as well. Took a -4 with the Haaland news. I'm now thinking about getting Palmer in for a Langa for a -8 total. Palmer's been so bad recently, though. Worth it? Yeah, the lack of form and the recent injury does make it very risky. But I think Tottenham, yeah, I just think Palmer's going to do really well. That's why I'm very keen on keeping Palmer on my wildcard if I can, and then selling him to Saka by Gameweek 33. So that is the way I'm looking at it. I think it's worth it, yeah, to kind of be very simple about it. You can always buy Saka in a couple of weeks' time anyway. So let's now lock in my team, hopefully. And by the way, thank you to the super chatters. We have here our super chat goals, so this stream will go on for even longer than usual. So yeah, let's bring this up. For those that aren't aware, of course, if we go to fpl.team, by going to this sort of wildcard, I can bench boost in Gameweek 32 and have the likes of Verbruggen, Cliver, Gabriel, and Milenkovic there. It's a very, very good bench boost in my opinion, and the starting 11 is not too shabby either. And then in terms of the captaincy, yeah, Isak captain. I think Mateta will take the vice. I mean, yeah, that's the way I'd go about it. Then for Gameweek 33, I've got 9 doublers? No, 8 doublers, but I've got Salah and Isak, who I'm very happy about anyway. And I've got free transfers there as well. Of course, one of them could be used to buy Saka for Cole Palmer, and I can captain him. If not, Marmoush would be the other one I'd highly consider. And then for Gameweek 34, you might look at that and think, that's terrible. But I do have the free hit in my back pocket, and my plan is to use it for the blank. Then Gameweek 35 gets quite interesting. And for example, you see here Arsenal and Bournemouth play each other. Not exactly ideal. A lot of these top teams do have relatively tough fixtures. I mean, even Newcastle away to Brighton isn't great. Forest against Crystal Palace. But relatively speaking, it's still not too shabby. And with multiple free transfers, potentially 3 to 4, maybe even 5, if I just buy Saka on the wildcard from the get-go, I can easily navigate the final stretch of the season and make multiple transfers and really attack every single game week as it comes. But that's where the Game Week 30 Wildcard can really push my team up to another level and sort out a lot of issues in my squad. But yeah, I'm going to now go back to my FPL squad. There's the context, of course. It says here 36 points would be deducted, of course, without the wildcard chip, but I am very keen on activating it now. It does say pending, as you can see, so it's not currently active technically, but once I confirm the moves, that'll be a different story, and the chip is irreversible, just like the assistant manager and the free hit. So there we go. If you do see anything on X, then let me know in terms of updates, because I have covered everything we've seen so far from yesterday and today, but we might get a few other kind of information and, updates basically in the last hour or so, which will be very important. So let's see how this looks like. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see anything on X, but yeah, be sure to let me know and be very careful about the sources. It is April Fool's Day as well, so yeah, you got to be very careful about that sort of thing. So yeah. So what is Kluivert's injury? Yeah, I'll cover that in just a few seconds. Is Vista Mateta to bench Mbeumo worth a -4? I like Mateta a lot. He is ranked highly in my captaincy list, but I'm not sure about benching Mbeumo for a hit and also selling Vissa. I'm a bit against that, to be honest. Which three Palace players would you choose? Munoz, Sarr, and Mateta. I'm not against going for Eze as well, and perhaps even doubling on the Palace midfielders, but I'm not really of the opinion of going for three Palace attackers. It's not a bad idea, but I'd rather have one defender or Henderson in goal, and then two attackers, which includes a midfielder. Yeah, my triple captain was deployed in Game Week 2. I also used this as the manager in double Game Week 24, and obviously the first wildcard I deployed early in the season. So I've only got the second wildcard remaining, unless I activate it now. The bench boost and the free hit. Those are my remaining chips. The rest have been deployed. Yeah, Marmoush is really highly rated there. So yeah, let's go through these different screens and lock things in. So let's start off with the captaincy list and all these predictions and graphics. Of course, I did cover my score lines earlier, and we can go through them one more time after the deadline has passed, so feel free to pause and add your own thoughts in the comment section. And in terms of the suggested team, the weakness, the team to really target this week, and also the player that can really benefit from it, I have gone for Southampton as the victim and Eze as the perpetrator here, with really, really good underlying stats. And as you can see there, the heat map looks perfect. But with the clean sheet odds and also the scoring over 2 goals, they are taken from different websites. So over 2 goals is taken by DraftHound, and the clean sheet odds are taken by fantasyfootballpundit.com. Arsenal are top with a 54% chance of keeping a clean sheet. Liverpool and Man City are in joint second in terms of defensive numbers. Bournemouth, Crystal Palace and Forest complete the top 6, and Leicester are in last. But Man City do have by far and away the highest chance of scoring over 2 goals. But in terms of the clean sheet odds, it does seem like Liverpool are slightly ahead of Man City. If you look at kind of like point something percentages, if you catch my drift. But this is the top 10 captaincy list, which of course has been highly requested. I've shown it only once before during this stream. So Salah is still top. How shocking and boring. It would have been Erling Haaland, I think. It was a really close call between those two, but I had to make some major shifts to this list after some key injury updates. Cole Palmer and Kluivert remain, despite their yellow flags. I think Cole Palmer will start, and I'm less confident about Justin Kluivert, to be quite honest with you. But Marmoush is second, Isak third, Palmer and Eze complete the top 5, with Kluivert, Foden, Mateta, Saka, and Ismaila Sarr in the top 10. Let's now go through the injury updates, and I did read out all of these earlier. Of course, this is the Kluivert update as well. So Justin is the one we are more in doubt with. He finished with some issues, and we have to check today to see if he's ready to go again. And I'll let this play out in terms of other players and teams that had press conferences yesterday with all those key updates. I'm just going to pause it here on Saka. So Mikel Arteta said he is ready to go, and multiple sources indicate he's going to start, and he has been spotted with the team. And of course, they are playing in just a couple of hours' time with Ruud van Nistelrooy. He made the update on Ricardo Pereira, Marco Silva as well on Fulham, so feel free to pause them if you need to. With Chris Wood, which is obviously of more FPL interest, he is improving and getting better day by day. According to Nuno Espirito Santo, we have to assess him day by day. A big contusion, so it is very painful. And on any other Forest injuries, yeah, of course, you can read that quote for yourself. It has been read out already. And with Man United, pretty much some updates there on Aiden Heaven and other players there. With Wolves, no new injuries, which is a great update there. And for Man City, we got the news yesterday, confirmed by Man City, that Erling Haaland will be out for 5 to 7 weeks. That was stated by Pep Guardiola in his press conference today with an ankle injury. So the hope is that he's available by the end of the season for the Club World Cup. And Guardiola said the following: the doctors told me between 5 and 7 weeks out. So hopefully for the end of the season, he will be ready. So yeah, that is all covered. And for those that have been asking about doubles and blanks, this is a spreadsheet by Ben Crellin, which is very useful. Feel free to pause it and also go to the website and the X profile, and you can see all this for yourself. But you can see the likely double game weeks, the possible ones. And this has been covered, by the way, in my chip strategy guide, but it was a less updated version, so to speak, because it happened before the FA Cup quarterfinals, and not much has changed in terms of when I recommend using different chips, but I'm more bullish on the bench boosting Gameweek 32, for example, for a lot of people, especially those that don't have the free hit to use in blank Gameweek 34. So hopefully all of that has been helpful to you, and we've only got, 19 minutes left until the deadline, so let's get this show on the road, and let's make sure we've got our teams locked in. So the wildcard is pending here, as you can see. It does allow me to get rid of some yellow flag players. I've still got 2 of them, though, in my setup in Kluivert and Cole Palmer. Perhaps I'll just offload Justin Kluivert or just have Saka in there from the beginning at the expense of Cole Palmer. So that is my current plan. Let's see how it all shapes up. But yeah, interesting times are certainly ahead in Fantasy Premier League, and let's see how it all goes. So yeah, I haven't used the wildcard yet there, Smile 305, but it's currently pending. So the most likely scenario is that in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to activate the chip and, yeah, sort out some problems in my team because I've got a few headaches, to say the least. I'd still start Chris Wood over Elanga just in case, but I think it's very unlikely that Chris Wood will start. For me, just a bit like Kluivert, he either starts or doesn't play at all. Yeah, it probably makes sense to just start Elanga, but yeah. Assuming that they were both fit, Chris Wood is my preference, to be honest. Start Murphy or Rodgers? Murphy. Kirkes and Burn or Livramento Milenkovic? I prefer Kirkes over Milenkovic, but Livramento over Burn. I'd go for Livramento and Milenkovic, and that's currently the duo I'm looking at for my wildcard as well. Palmer and Murphy or Matoma and Mbumo? Palmer and Murphy. Clean sheet odds for Forest versus United? I think I just showed it, no? I did just show it, but because it showed the top 6 teams. So if I just go to the odds one more time. So yeah, Nottingham Forest are 6th in terms of clean sheet odds this week with a 33% chance of keeping one. For Man United, I'll have to double check that for you because I don't have that stat on screen here. So give me a second. See if I can get that up. So Man United, if I can get this quickly, are kind of mid-table. They've got a 24% chance of keeping a clean sheet. They are 12th. They are 12th amongst all Premier League teams. So only Aston Villa, Fulham, Southampton, Brentford, Everton, Tottenham, Ipswich Town and Leicester have a lower chance of keeping a clean sheet than Man United, according to fantasyfootballpundit.com. Morgan Gibbs White suspended to be a doubt for Forest tonight, says Mohit. Sorry, it's supposed to be a doubt. Yeah, I've been asked about him, I think, in my recent videos and stuff like that. Forest have several injury updates and issues and concerns, which is obviously not ideal. Hey, is there a case to be made for Dean over Konsa? Yes, but I also think he's less nailed on. I think Konsa will just provide you somewhat of a security of starts. I think Luka, Dean and Maatsen will share minutes, and yeah, I just don't see Dean starting all of the games, especially Southampton, with PSG on the horizon. Who are the cheaper options than to Kluivert or to Saka and Palmer? Well, compared to Saka and Palmer, you're looking at Bruno Fernandes, for example, as a decent alternative. Phil Foden as well, for this week in particular. I think for Kluivert, you're looking at Murphy, Ismail Assar. then it becomes a bit more difficult. You might look at Rodgers instead, but I'm not a huge fan. I'd actually rather have Clivert instead, to be honest. Recommended assistant manager. A Gameweek 31 to 33 on Oliver Glasner, but you might have other chips you want to use, so it's not as simple as that, and you can't use 2 chips in the same game week, so remember that. Trent should be out for a couple more weeks. It looks like until, I think, early May, if I'm not mistaken. So Quansah looks quite good for the time being, but once Bradley's back, that'll be a different story. Start Williams over Howson. Not a bad shout. I'm not completely against that. Now, if it was, let's say, for example, Milos Kerkez, I'd have a different opinion because he has the attacking potential from open play, whilst Howson is really dependent on those set pieces. So, yeah, it does depend on that as well. But I'd probably go for Williams over Howson here, yeah. Dubravka or Jorgensen play? No, Nick Pope and Robert Sanchez will start. Which goalkeepers would I recommend? David Raya will be my favourite. I also like Verbruggen for the bench boost in 32, if not Areola for a Gameweek 33 bench boost. So Sydney says bench boost 32 or 33 if you still have the triple captain. Yeah, good question. If you don't have the free hit though, I think I'm going to stick with the same answer, and that's the bench boost in 32. Then you can triple captain in 33, and it makes it slightly easier to navigate that period between 33 and 34 where the teams that double in Gameweek 33 will blank in the preceding game week. So hopefully that makes sense. Start Murphy or Elanga? I'd favour Murphy, as mentioned before. Who to upgrade on template wildcard if I've gone Savinho over Foden? Well, having Sarr and Eze at the same time is a nice differential, or perhaps having both Palmer and Saka if that is also a possibility for you, but yeah, Trippier, maybe instead of Livramento. There's a few things here and there you can do with the extra money. That's definitely for sure. Yeah, that is the most likely scenario there, mate. I'll probably play the wildcard in the end, and it's probably best I do it now. So let's go back to the FPL website and start locking things in. So with this wildcard squad, I'd be selling both of my goalkeepers and getting Raya and Verbruggen. I don't even mind keeping Sels, to be fair, but I do think this is an upgrade here. I also keep Gabriel and Munoz, who I bought in as part of my Gameweek 30 transfer anyway, but I'm also able to add Milenkovic, who kind of basically replaces Sels if you think about it that way. But I also add Livramento and Gavardio, so that already looks stronger. As for the midfield, I'm keeping Palmer and Clivert at the moment, and I'm also adding Sarr and Murphy. So yeah, 2 changes in the midfield, 2 in the defence, technically 3 with Milenkovic, 2 new goalkeepers, and 2 new forwards with Marmoush and Mateta as well. So I'd be selling Ivanosen and a few other players here and there. You can see the transfers on screen now. Valdimarsson to Raya, Sels to Verbruggen, Colwell to Gavardio, Mikalenko to Milenkovic, Robinson to Livramento, Mbeumo to Sarr, Bruno Fernandes to Jacob Murphy, Chris Wood to Marmoush, and Ivanosen to Mateta. So that's currently how I'm looking at Gameweek 30, and I think I'm just going to end up pulling the trigger. So yeah, it's become more likely with all the updates. I think that Clivert one has pretty much sent me over the edge. With Clivert, is he going to start or not? I'm not entirely sure, mate. The problem I have with my own setup is that if Clivert doesn't play at all, I've got no one really coming off the bench because I don't think Chris Wood will be available either. Then it's Robinson away to Arsenal. Whilst with the wildcard, I can bring on Murphy or Gabriel, so that looks much stronger all of a sudden, and I've got a decent platform already for the future doubles and blanks. But with Clivert, I think he either starts or doesn't play at all. I don't think he'll be on the bench, personally. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that is my prediction. Yeah, Bradley's in team training and almost back. Yeah, I was told that by some Liverpool fans in my recent streams a couple of weeks ago, and that's one of the key reasons why I haven't really recommended Quansah. He was a skip in my recent Transfers podcast as well. Yeah, God sent, they're both good options, but Salah is the number 1 for me. Marmoush is second. Josh says, hi Dylan, I have my wildcard active. Can you tell me which is better, Gordon and Totti or Murphy and Quansah? I then upgraded Kusanov to Gavardio. Yeah, good question. If you're not free hitting in Gameweek 34, then I would go for Gordon and Totti Gomez because that Wolves defender will help you quite substantially with that plum fixture against Leicester. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Aston Villa defensively, so Quansah doesn't really appeal to me. As a duo, you could argue Murphy and Quansah's better, but I think it ultimately depends on your remaining chips. I think that's what pretty much defines what you should do in terms of your duo. I'm not sure Gibbs White will start. I'm less confident, actually, than I would be with Clivert. Should I start Sells or Areola? I'd go for Sells. Yeah, I'm also looking at going for Milenkovic over Gabriel because I've got Raya in goal anyway, so I'm looking at something similar. It might backfire if Gabriel gets a bullet header. He has done it before against Fulham. A few times, actually. Sell Robinson for Munoz on Wildcard and Rodgers to Murphy. Yeah. That looks fairly decent. I'd do Robinson to Munoz. That looks better. Same team as me, except I have Eze instead of Sarr. Fair enough. I'm not sure I'm able to afford that, actually. If I wanted to. I've got 0.3 million in the bank. Unless I do Palmer to Saka, that would help me a little bit. But either way, I'm quite happy to go for Ismaila Sarr regardless. So, yeah, just for context, this is my team without making any, using the wild card. Only Munoz in for Veltman. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad, but I'm just going to wildcard. So, there we go. Confirm transfers. I have locked myself in. And there we go. So let's just make the changes. Raya in for Verbruggen. Milenkovic instead of Gabriel is going to be interesting. Marmoush definitely not on the bench. No chance. No chance. So yeah, Murphy will be there. Gabriel replaces Livramento. Captaincy on Salah. Isak. Yeah, Isak or Marmoush, they're both very, very decent options. So that is my updated team. I have wildcarded in the end. So yeah, interesting times ahead. That's one way of putting it. Let me know what you think of the live chat. Of course, 66% have voted for wildcard now with my team situation. If you want to see any other polls, then let me know in the live chat. Let's also get this stream to over 200 likes. We are getting closer towards that and making more progress towards 33k subscribers. Check all the links in the description below for my Patreon, the Championships Discord server, FPL League, Spotify, Blue Sky, you name it. It's all there in the description as well. So, wildcard deadline stream. Let's update the title and let's also go to the super chat by Aranya, I believe. Hopefully I haven't missed any others, but I will be on the lookout for it. Aranya says, Dylan, are there any benefits of the Gameweek 31 wildcard over Gameweek 30? Well, you've got an extra week worth of information. You could get some injuries and suspensions over the next couple of days, so that's obviously the kind of most obvious one. And we also could get more clarification on the doubles, so maybe the ones we expect for Gameweek 33 will end up happening in Gameweek 36 instead. I mean, these television companies have, you know, all the power when it comes to determining when they can really put these kind of games in place. So that is another reason we could see maybe an Arsenal Crystal Palace in 36 instead. It's less likely, but it's still a possibility. So that would be another reason. But look, I'll be honest, I wanted to save the wildcard for 31 and have a bit more information, and I was quite happy with my team this week. But with all the flags and stuff, yeah, I've decided to pull the trigger. Thank you, Josh. Very kind of you. Blank Gameweek 36. Gameweek 36 will be a double, just to let you know. The only blanks would be in 34 and 37 because of the clashes of the FA Cup. Trent Munoz for -4. My other defenders are Colwill, Castagna, Gabriel and Greaves. Plan is wildcard 34, 35 and no free hit. Yeah, Munoz is a good transfer in. He's got back-to-back doubles and a great fixture this week, so it seems like a no-brainer. Yeah, you can start Gabriel, Colwill and Munoz this week, which is what I would have gone for if I didn't wildcard, actually. It's possible, Safar. It's not absolutely locked in. But yeah, if I actually also give a bit of context, so going back to the Gameweek 32 bench boost I'm looking at, so with Kluivert, who I expect to be available by Gameweek 31 and 32, I can have this sort of bench with Verbruggen, Kluivert, Gabriel, Milenkovic. I mean, if I'm looking at the other options I've got, I mean, I'm not a huge fan. I'm really not a huge fan of the other options at that price and below. Murphy and Sarr are my favourites, and they're already in my team. Going to Eze would require selling one of Munoz or Mateta, or even Sarr. So yeah, I'm just looking at the options. Matoma, good fixture for 32, but he's not really desirable long-term. Morgan Rogers, I think all Aston Villa assets are actually susceptible to rotation, with the Champions League and FA Cup also in play for them. So yeah, I'll be honest, I'm still quite happy to keep Kluivert. If he doesn't play this week, not ideal. But I've got Jacob Murphy coming off the bench against Brentford, which isn't too shabby, if not Gabriel. So yeah, I know, I get it. It's like having 2 yellow flag players still looks a bit awkward. Of course, there's my non-wildcard team, and this is how it looks like now. So I've been able to add 2 more Crystal Palace players, obviously not taking any hits in the process, adding 2 Man City assets, kind of swapping Raya and, well, in this case it would have been Gabriel and Sells in my starting 11 for Raya and Milenkovic. Kluivert is still there, but I've got the backup this time. In the other team, I would have Robinson away to Arsenal, or Chris Wood, who is very doubtful, coming off the bench. So, yeah, it might not be perfect. I can also do Palmer to Saka in Gameweek 33, or just buy him in now. That is one of my other dilemmas I've got from now until the deadline. So, let's put another poll out, and it will be in relation to the Palmer one. So, we'll go straight to Saka. Yep, 2 minutes left. Let's lock in our teams. It has gone really quickly, by the way. It has been a while since we've done these streams, but yeah, they have flown by. Hi Dylan, hope you're well. I literally just joined. Kluivert flagged. Yeah, he had some issues after the FA Cup match, as reported by Iraola, but it doesn't seem to be a long-term issue. I've got the bench coverage if needed to, replace him, which I didn't have without the wild card, but it's not a long-term problem. Aranya says, would you rather have Marmoush or Mateta this week? Marmoush, he's second in my captaincy list. Mateta is a bit lower down. He's never scored against Southampton, but I think Gameweek 30 will be a nice time to break that sort of trend. Kluivert replacement if necessary. Well, apart from Sarr, Eze and Murphy, who are the kind of standouts at a similar price, I'd be looking at the likes of Matoma and Rogers. Those are the ones that really stand out to me, but they're not too appealing in my opinion. Definitely Cole Palmer for me, mate. I just don't think Wanyeri is that appealing anymore. Yeah, we are getting very close now, less than a minute, so let's lock things in. Very close, by the way, in this poll. 52% are saying buy Saka now, and 48% are saying Palmer until Gameweek 33, but that is what I've currently gone with. Thank you, Migsy0151. Always good to see you. Bench 2, Howson, Wood, Palmer, Kluivert, and Mbumo, Pedro, Bellegarde. I would bench Bellegarde, and I think I'd bench Howson, but he will likely come on for you anyway. I just don't think Chris Wood will start, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, well, the deadline has passed, so we are locked in. So there's literally no escape. There is no escape. Yeah, that is my wildcard team. So just for those that aren't aware, Raya is in goal for me. I've got a back three of Munoz, Milenkovic, and Gvardiol. Sarr, Kluivert, Salah, and Palmer, with Marmoush, Mateta, Isak, and a bench of Verbruggen, Murphy, Gabriel, and Livramento. So what are the things I could regret this week? There's a lot. One of them is not going for Saka from the get-go and keeping Palmer. We'll see how that goes. Maybe Justin Kluivert if it turns out to be a more serious injury than anticipated, and that would be a transfer waiting to happen. Also, when I look at benching Gabriel, I actually think that could really backfire, even if Arsenal concede against Fulham, because he has scored against Fulham on multiple occasions. He's done it at Craven Cottage, and also a few years ago in a 2-1 win for Arsenal at the Emirates. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I've got Murphy to come on if needed for Justin Kluivert, and I've optimized my team for Gameweek 32, and that's where I'm looking to bench boost. I've got 2 chips remaining now, the bench boost and the free hit. The plan is also to free hit in blank Gameweek 34, so that is pretty much me set in stone with my chip strategy, unless things really change in. Saka bench, site crashed. No way Saka's benched. Really? Is that April Fool's, or is that like an unreliable source? But yeah, I've logged in already, so I'm quite happy about that. Hopefully I didn't miss any super chats, by the way. Let me just check. I'm pretty sure I've gone through all of them, but YouTube can be a bit finicky. Yeah, all of them have been covered. That is great to see. And yeah, let's go through your other questions as well. Palmer's been playing like he's high, unfortunately. Yeah, but it's Tottenham. Dr. Tottenham, you know. Are you high? Here's a bit of marijuana for you. I probably shouldn't say that. We are locked. Good luck all, says Pieter. Yep, good luck to you as well. Lock in the teams. Time's up. Yeah, unfortunately. Thank you as well, Migsy, once again, even though I said that already, but my chat has basically bugged out. Do you think Cucurella is a good punt for bench boost 32 and blank 34? He's all right. I mean, I understand the appeal of having a Chelsea defender, even Robert Sanchez in goal, because of those fixtures. So facing Ipswich Town and Everton at home in those respective double and blank game weeks, yeah, I mean, it's not terrible. I'm not a huge fan of Cucurella, though, and at similar price, I'll be honest, I still prefer Kanate, Gabriel, Milenkovic, Daniel Munoz, Livramento. Of course, for Game Week 34, some of those options will blank anyway, but yeah, on the wildcard right now, I'd rather have those players than Cucurella. Cliver replacement if necessary. Yeah, that's been covered already. So yeah, I think I've just gone for that again. Hi Dylan, which three would you choose? Yeah, of course the deadline has passed, but I would have gone for Cliver. Good question. Yeah, Cliver, Milenkovic, and Mbuma with, yeah, I think Vissa first on the bench, Gabriel second. I'll be honest, I could see myself really regretting benching Gabriel. That could be one of my painful moments of the wildcard because I would have started Gabriel this week. Good luck all. Yeah, likewise to you. Time's up. Was going to do Clivert to Marino. Yeah, in my case, though, I'm quite happy not to go for Marino yet, and I'd highly suggest that you keep that spot safe and available for Bukayo Saka. He is definitely the best Arsenal asset for the long term. Oh man, I could have put Bowen instead of Murphy. Well, for Game Week 32, I do prefer Murphy. Of course, Bowen faces Liverpool away and Newcastle have a double game week. Afterwards, yeah, Bowen looks more appealing, but he's also more expensive, so it's a double-edged sword there. Damn, I didn't have the time to make any changes. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I left it fairly late, as I usually do with my wild card, but I ended up getting it in time anyway. Yeah, it's not good to leave things until the end, but of course you joined the stream late, and it's difficult when you've got other commitments as well. Good luck, MMK. Aiden says took a minus 36 and confirmed the hit and made transfers. After that, click wildcard separately and made another transfer. Will my hits be removed? Yeah, so don't worry about that. As long as you made another move and confirmed it, and obviously activate the wildcard, then that is no issue. Good luck as well, Sudindra. Decided to sell Wood to Mateta, benched in Boomer, and started Cliver. Time to wildcard next. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see if we see a lot of differences between the Game Week 31 and 30 wildcards, but I was also looking to use the chip tonight, but after the deadline has passed, but of course I activated it just in time. Good luck as well, Safir, and we are all locked in. But yeah, let's actually have a look at this Saka news or whatever. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. There's rumours about the Saka benching, but let's see what happens. That's surprising to me. I'll actually try to get up the source I saw. Not Saka source, which was in Nando's for a while. But yeah, I saw reliable sources indicate that Saka is going to start. So that would be quite surprising, actually. Let's see if I can get it up on screen. All right, so this is the one I saw yesterday, if I can get up on screen now. So yeah, Bukayo Saka is likely to start against Fulham, according to Time Sport. This was yesterday. Maybe there has been an update or two ever since, but yeah, if that's the case, if Saka is benched, I'm going to be quite happy I ended up keeping Palmer. That could be one of my substantial gains over other wildcarders, for example, those that just offloaded Palmer and went in the Saka route anyway. But we'll wait and see. I mean, I thought Saka would start based on all the information I've seen over the last couple of days, and even I think this morning there was something about Saka starting. It might have been the same source, just reaffirming what they said yesterday, but yeah, that is definitely intriguing to say the least. Let's also go to my predictions again. So, I have gone for Arsenal 2, Fulham 1, irrespective of if Saka starts or not, should I say. Wolves 1, West Ham 1, Nottingham Forest 1, Man United 0, Bournemouth 3, Ipswich Town 1, Brighton 2, Aston Villa 2, Manchester City 4, Leicester 0, Newcastle 3, Brentford 2, Southampton 0, Crystal Palace 2, Liverpool 2, Everton 0, and then Chelsea 2, Tottenham Hotspur 1. Let me know your predictions in the live chat. Let's go through your other questions and comments. Drop a like on this stream. Let's try to get it to 200, if not as close as possible. That would be greatly appreciated. So yeah, Gabriel's first on my bench. Yeah, second for me. When do you plan to bench boost? 32. I showed it earlier. I would have a bench of Verbruggen, Kluivert, Gabriel, and Milenkovic, all of home fixtures, and the starting 11 is also very strong indeed. Saka starting, word on the street, mate, says FPL Kevy. I'm hearing different things. If Palmer doesn't play, we're finished. I'm not sure about that. I mean, yeah, if I don't have Kluivert and Palmer, starting, I mean, Murphy and Gabriel off the bench is okay, but not the way you'd want to start a wildcard team. But that is obviously the risk I took by keeping both of them. I put 10.5 million on keepers Ryan Deeble. In my opinion, it's a bit too steep, but it can still work very well, especially with the double they have in 33, which is very likely to happen. And also, Martinez faces Southampton away in 32, so yeah, more appealing than I think what Raya has, actually, if we're being honest. Blank Gameweek Phase 7, how will the impact of opponents in Phase 7 for the finalists of the FA Cup? Well, the FA Cup finalists and the respective opponents will blank in 37 and likely double in 36. That is the most likely scenario. If we actually go back to Ben Krellin's graphic, that's probably the best thing we should do. So let's go to this section and let's skim through to the end here. So as you can see, for Gameweek 37, you can see the potential doubles. The potential blanks in 37 include Crystal Palace versus Wolves. Also, Man City versus Bournemouth at home. Aston Villa facing Tottenham at home. Also, Nottingham Forest facing West Ham away. Tottenham facing Aston Villa away. Bournemouth, so yeah, obviously I've said these already, but I'm just saying it the other way around. Bournemouth facing Man City away. Wolves facing Crystal Palace away, and West Ham facing Nottingham Forest at home. So those are the potential blanks, and that would mean a potential double in 36 instead, which you can see highlighted in blue and white. So there you go. And of course for Gameweek 34, which is the one kind of closer to us in terms of the blank, Brentford versus Nottingham Forest will likely stay in 34, as opposed to all the others, which would form the Gameweek 33 double for the likes of Crystal Palace, Arsenal, Aston Villa, Man City. So yeah, hopefully that is all very clear to you as well. Let's now go back to my FPL team for now. And yeah, well, this is my previous team. We can forget that. That squad can do one. So yeah, this is how it ended up. Is it viable to do a Gameweek 32 bench boost with a Gameweek 31 wildcard? Definitely, and as close as you can get the wildcard to the bench boost as possible. I mean, that's ideal. So typically what people do is they wildcard in, let's say, 34 and then bench boost in 35 in previous seasons. So that's absolutely fine. Easy says, I saw in the fixtures there are finalists original fixtures, well, another double Gameweek in 34. Yeah, I don't think there'll be a double in 38, to be honest. But in 36 is possible, and maybe a fixture stays in 37, but be sure to go to that graphic I just showed you. That gives you, oh wow, yeah, so Saka benched. Yeah, that's a reliable source there. So TNAT. I'll have a look at that myself. Maybe they posted it on a different website, but if they posted it on X, I can bring it up for you as well. That is not a great way to start the wildcard for those that went for Saka. Of course, I ended up keeping Palmer. Bit of luck there, maybe, if Palmer actually plays. We'll wait and see. Wait, can I... What's his actual X now? Oh my god, I don't even know what his... bloody username is, but I'll take your word for it. Oystein says Man United will win. Let's wait and see. I don't really believe anything today. Yeah, I get you. April Fool's Day and that. Ezra says, I have both. I mean, double Isak and Murphy right now. Could have put Bowen. Yeah, I mean, if you're bench boosting in 33, that's quite appealing to go for Bowen, but otherwise, it's not really the end of the world. Racing says, come on. All right. Yeah, I've got Aina first on the bench and a flagged Wood with Cliver and Palmer flagged in the starting 11. Well, I mean, I've got a wildcard team and I've got both Cliver and Palmer, but decent bench coverage now as opposed to before. Not sure about Vissa and Mbumo. Wanted to switch Vissa out for Mateta or Marmoush, to be fair. Yeah, I think this week Marmoush looks really appealing, and maybe because of the extra double, I'd lean towards Mateta if I had to pick one. But yeah, I also think having Eze and Sa at the same time looks really appealing. Safar says Palmer price drop tonight. Let's have a look, because I forgot about the price changes, to be honest. It's not really at the forefront of my thinking. No, apparently no. But Saka go up in price tonight, right? Yeah, he is projected to go up in price. Palmer could go down in price tomorrow, though. But maybe. Well, they play on Thursday, but a haul against Tottenham would maybe change things. It won't be enough, I think, to make up for the damage in terms of budget. Wildcard felt fairly blur. I think it's because with all the injuries and all the circumstances in this international break and the way the doubles and blanks have, well, they look to fall, it just seems like a lot of us are pushing in the same direction, to be quite honest with you. So apparently league lineups posted 10 seconds before the deadline saying Saka's benched. Wow, I did not know that. Yeah, sometimes these sources, they might get the information late, but they post it so late and, basically have no time to react in the deadline. So I get that, but I've gone for Palmer. So yeah, Bukayo Saka's benched as insane gamer. A lot of people are saying that. Yeah, team news and ticks. Yeah, for some reason I was typing in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I know he's got that as his DP, but yeah, Jesus. Yeah, I got it now. Thank you for reminding me of his username. I forgot. But yeah, it's not on his X. He hasn't posted it there. Of course, Sam C from the United stand did say Arsenal face Fulham tonight, and Saka is set to be included in the matchday squad, but he didn't say he starts. Let's see if he has said anything new. No, he hasn't. He did actually follow that tweet up, the one saying that he's going to be in the squad, stating that the 11 hasn't been picked yet by Arteta. So yeah, it looks like a late decision, and Arteta has decided to go for Saka on the bench. Mr. Parky says, I forgot to take Burnout. Damn it. He's still a good pick, and he's a bit cheaper than Livramento, and of course, compared to Trippier, it's a big difference. The only concern I've got is the 9 yellow cards. Yeah, bench boost 33 is still good, so fair. It's just, for those that have no free hit in 34, and I know I'm not one of them, but it's definitely very awkward to navigate the double and the blank in back-to-back game weeks with no free hit. So I'd rather bench boost in 32, to be quite honest with you. And I also look at it from my perspective with the free hit in mind, because I've got it available, and I'm still very set on bench boosting in 32. I've made my path there. And as long as I don't get too many injuries in the next week or two, it's looking pretty solid, actually. So let's just show you again. No flexing, I promise. I mean, this might end up going absolutely wrong. But my Gameweek 32 provisional team as it stands is Raya in goal against Brentford at home. Munoz and Livramento are double game weeks against Man United. Well, Munoz faces Man City and Newcastle away. This then goes for Sam Mateta. I've got Livramento, Murphy and Isak with a double of home games there against Man United and Crystal Palace. Salah at home to West Ham. Palmer facing Ipswich Town at home. Gavardio and Marmoush facing Crystal Palace at home. And I've got a decent bench of Verbruggen, Kluivert, Gabriel and Milenkovic, all with home fixtures and of decent quality, may I add. So yeah, look, Gameweek 33, those that maybe go for like a second or third Liverpool asset facing Leicester away, maybe going for West Ham assets like Areola, Bowen facing Southampton, that's also very promising for a Gameweek 33 bench boost. But then also think about blank Gameweek 34, and my plan is to use the free hit, so I'm not too bothered about that anyway, but I just like the look of the Gameweek 32 bench boost, and it might be a little bit of a differential play compared to many managers. So that's the way I'm kind of set for the rest of the season now. But there's also Gameweek 35 to 38 to think about. And yeah, it's going to be a bit awkward by that stage. Some good teams and great FPL assets will have some tough fixtures there. So as you can see on screen, this is the FPL mini league. You can join. There is a league code and an auto join link in the description. Big shout out to everyone in it. And obviously Callum is in first place, 9th overall in the world, with a decent lead in this mini league as well. Let's see if things change from now until the end of the season. So all the updates have been covered. Anthony Gordon, Kluivert, Erling Haaland, everything you need to know for the deadline. Bukayo Saka, who it looks like he's going to be benched. So let's wait and see. Thank you, Punjabi. I appreciate that. Hopefully we have gotten to that goal for this stream as well. So we have. So thank you very much. Let's answer a few more questions and stuff like that. I've gone through my predictions already. An FPL challenge. Let's not forget FPL challenge. I might need to make a change here. Okay, this is the wrong page. We can figure about that. That's not my team anymore. So Salah, Palmer, Saka, Eze, Mateta, Marmoush, and Isak. So I might have to sell Saka. It looks like he is not going to start. So that is a possible alteration that needs to be made. Maybe I'll go for Bruno Fernandes. Maybe I'll go for... You know what? I'm tempted by Foden here. Yeah, I'm going to go for Foden. So I've got 2 double ups with Man City and Crystal Palace for my FPL Challenge team. I've got Salah, Palmer and Isak to kind of complete proceedings. So looks pretty decent. Andreas says, what are your thoughts on my wildcard team? Pope, Areola, Gavardio, Timber, Munoz, Williams, Disasi, Salah, Saka, Sarr, Semenyo, Gibbs-White, Marmoush, Mateta, Isak. Yeah, good team. You've got some nice differentials in there, but to kind of be brutally honest and, you know, say the things I don't like about it, During Timber is a kind of small concern, but I just think around the time that Arsenal play Real Madrid, I could see Ben White starting in the Premier League, so Timber might not be the safest bet there. You've got good goalkeepers. They rotate fairly well. If you are bench boosting in 33, then that is a very solid pairing, especially with Areola. Pope does face Aston Villa away that week, but it's still not the worst in the world. A good defensive line. I'm just a bit concerned about Disasi. I know he doubles in 33, but I just don't like Aston Villa's defensive production or output. Even against Southampton, they could rotate quite heavily there. Could Disasi start? Absolutely, but I wouldn't absolutely bank on it. Semenyo's on 9 yellow cards. Gibbs White is currently an injury doubt. Of course, I can't really talk about injury doubts. I've got both Palmer and Cliver in my setup, but yeah, there's just a few concerns I'd have. Overall, though, it's a really good squad, and if Gibbs White is available and Semenyo doesn't get booked before Bournemouth have played their 32nd league game, then you're in a good position long term. Can we hit a big Vamos? Well, yeah, I think that's probably it. He posted on his Insta story, league lineups is his Insta. All right, thank you for that. I wasn't aware. I take the -4 here, keep the wildcard for now. Good luck, Easy99. Everyone wildcard Saka this game week must punch the air. Yeah, I could tell. If I went for Saka, you would have blamed me because you think I jinx people. I'm happy I didn't jinx him. FPL challenge, yes, you can see it. Let me know what you think. Are you the happiest man after seeing Saka return? Yeah, well, I'm not sure if I'm the happiest man. There's a lot of Arsenal fans that will be happy with it, but yeah, I mean, I'm more optimistic. Even if I've got a realistic outlook on how Arsenal season will end, I'll be more optimistic about our chances in the Champions League and of having a decent end in terms of results in the Premier League, but it's not still the season I'd want it to be. Hopefully the next campaign is, and no more next season FC kind of Netflix stuff that I keep hearing about. Sophia says looks good. It's not bad on paper, but FPL does have a way of throwing curveballs at you. So yeah, Saka bench confirmed. We can go for some lineups now, since obviously we have gotten some already. So let me get them up. Yeah, a lot of different sources did say it like 10, 15 minutes ago that Saka is on the bench. So, yep, kind of maybe, how do I say this? It's a bit underwhelming, but there you go. Let's get Arsenal's team up. But good to see Saka return regardless. Not exactly what the FPL managers are wanting though, but this is Arsenal's team. Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Lewis Skelly, Partey, Rice, Odegaard, Wanyeri, Martinelli, Marino. Yeah, Wanyeri will probably do well now, and the skip that I talked about a couple of days ago will look like very foolish, but I still stand by what I said. I just don't recommend Wanyeri in the long term. And there are better budget midfielders out there like Alanga, Jacob Murphy and Sarr. Those two in particular should be the priority. So that is the Arsenal lineup. Let's also get Fulham's, but I will be wrapping up fairly soon and calling it a day. It has been an extensive live stream, as I like to do in general. Let's see if I can get this up for Fulham as well. All right, so Leno, is this a link? Yeah, no, it's not. Leno, Diop, Anderson, Cuenca, Castagna, Sandenberg, Lukic, Robinson, Traore, Smith-Rowe, and Jimenez. So yeah, Bassi on the bench, quite surprising. That's pointed out by some people in the replies. Yeah. And let's see what else we can get. Yeah, so Wolves, West Ham. And of course, we'll get the Forest United lineups very shortly. Let's start off with Wolves. So an unchanged 11 there from Vitor Pereira's side. So Sarr, Semedo, Doughty, Agbadu, Totti, Gomez, Aït-Nouri, Andre, João Gomez, Menezes, Bellegarde, and Strand Larsen, who was doubtful, but that was cleared in yesterday's press conference, which obviously was relayed in this stream as well. With all the updates, Vitor Pereira said no new injuries and everyone has come back from the international break in a very positive way. And let's now go to West Ham. All right, this should load any second now. Hopefully. One day. All right. Oh, okay. So we got a surprise start here, you could say, for West Ham. So Areola, Wan-Bissaka, Mavropanos, Kilman, Creswell, Scales, Ward-Prowse, Paqueta, Guilherme, Bowen, and Ferguson. He gets the nod here. And let's see on the bench. So yeah, Fulkrug is back, which was also relayed in the update I provided earlier by Graham Potter. So yeah, Saville is still close, but not quite there yet, as we can see. So those are the lineups. Let me know what you think of all of them in the comment section. Do you have Saka? Do you not? We can discuss that. That is the big talking point. The man on the thumbnail, he is back, but not in the way we would have wanted. I did Wood to Marmoush, but left in Vissa instead of taking a -4 for Mateta. Yeah, I get that. And I think Vissa could do well. I went for a 3-2 win for Newcastle, but I think it'll be a high-scoring game. Which 4.3 million defender is best to pick? It's probably going to be one of those Wolves defenders like Agbadu for blank Gameweek 34, but it also depends on your chip strategy. Shall I activate the wildcard after the game is updated to stock up on players I'd potentially want in advance of price changes throughout the week? Yeah. I said this before as well. If I didn't wildcard before this deadline, I would have done it afterwards, just in time for tonight's price rises. Dylan, can I know what's the link to check the latest price rises and drops? Well, it's funny you should say that because I did forget to go to the reliable one, the really reliable one of livefpl.net. So you can't see it properly on screen. I'm going to read them out for you now. So let me also send this link. So yeah, it's livefpl.net. So Marmoush, Mateta, Gavardio, Saka, Sarr, Eze, Murphy, Isak, Raya, Salah. Oh my god. Munoz, Gabriel, Livramento, Saliba, Byrne, Milenkovic, Areola, Semenyo, and Foden, they are all projected to rise in price tonight. As for price falls, Chris Wood, Palmer. So yeah, it looks like Palmer is going down in price now. Yeah, so for those that asked, yeah. That's another one to kind of a bitter pill to swallow. Mbumo, Tell, Beto, Clivert, Cunha, Greaves, Robinson, Pickford, Samari, Vissa, Vitor Reis, Dango Ouattara, Vandenberg, Chalobah, Echeverri, Buonanotte, Janelt, Emerson Palmieri, Raul Jimenez, Wanyeri, Makete, Fass, Chiwomi, Dawson, Mezraoui, Yarmouk, Steele, Johnston, Mangala, Calvert-Lewin, Burns, Johnson, Walker-Peters, Harwood-Bellis, and Carlos Miguel. Not all of them will happen, but a good portion of these players, especially the kind of popular assets, will go up and down in price tonight. So, yeah, that is the reliable one, livefpl.net. I mean, Fantasy Football Hub is also quite reliable. You can see what they're saying on screen. I'm going to refresh it since things have changed. But yeah, have they gone for Palmer to go down in price? They're saying tomorrow, aren't they? Oh no, they're now saying tonight. Yeah, but I think that could be a mistake. I really think Palmer can do well in the next three. I might even outscore not just Saka, but most midfielders in the game, bar Salah. Wasing says, trust the process. The Foden drop-off from last season to this season is crazy. Yeah, and of course we saw part of that in the Euros where he played quite poorly in most of the games. He is a quality player, but I also think Man City's downfall has coincided with his drop-off in performances, and not having Rodri there has been a big miss as well. Most picked on the wildcard, Milenkovic and Nico Williams. I think Milenkovic, but Nico Williams is good. He's also suspended for the FA Cup semi-finals. Could there be a match in the Premier League where maybe Nuno Espirito Santo goes for Moreno in the left-back position to give him a bit of minutes and match sharpness in there? So that is a possibility, to be quite honest with you. But apart from that, I think Williams will start most games from now until the end of the season in the league. Could Forest have a double if they make the final? Yes, in 36. I could maybe go back to that one more time, but if Forest were to reach the FA Cup final, their fixture against West Ham would likely go into 36. Yeah, that is what we'll likely see. And I think West Ham even posted it on their website. They had a few kind of paragraphs describing it, and they also mentioned that as a possibility. I'm going to Bournemouth versus Fulham as a Bournemouth fan. Enjoy it. Hopefully Clivert plays and gets us some points, but that's not a guarantee. Was Byrne and Livramento okay to enable Saka instead of Murphy and Gordon? I prefer a double up in the Newcastle attack, to be honest with you. But having Livramento and Burn are good, especially for Gameweek 31 against Leicester. That is a very good chance of a clean sheet, in my opinion. I saw someone triple up on Arsenal defence. Yeah, I'd be more inclined to do that than even double up on Newcastle defensively, personally. But yeah, I think 1 or 2 is a sweet spot. Which London club will win a trophy first? Probably Chelsea. I think the Conference League is quite low quality. So yeah, I think Chelsea have a great chance of winning it this season. Will Kluivert start? I hope so, and I'm leaning more towards yes, but I'm not confident, I'll be honest. I was rushing and started Murphy instead. Not a bad idea. I might have the same kind of thing happen anyway, where Kluivert misses out, Murphy comes in. But I'm kind of 50-50 on the Kluivert one. I suspect Saka will come on for a half-time for Nwaneri. Yeah, especially depending on game state if Arsenal are down or need a goal. It will be benched considering his form surprising too. That is true. And also facing his former club. He played relatively well in the reverse fixture this season. Saka will get 30 minutes, I assume. Yeah, I think Safar says 20. I'd go for about half an hour, yeah. Plan is Semenyo to Rodgers for 33. Yeah, that's a good idea. I do like Semenyo this week against Ipswich Town. He might do really well. I mean, he's been booked so many times recently. Hopefully he doesn't get one for your sake. If Saka ends up staying on the bench, who is in my starting 11? My first sub, Kluivert, doesn't start. Would my second sub start, or would I end up with 0 points for that position? Yeah, your second sub would start, as long as you've got an eligible formation, which I guess would be the case in your situation. Based on your team now, your team will have 6 players blanking in Gameweek 37. Yeah, but I would have a lot of free transfers. So if I buy Saka for Palm in 33, free hit in 34, I could then have 4 free transfers for Gameweek 35. So it's not the end of the world, in my opinion. If Steve faced Palace in the final, yeah, which is possible. It definitely is, but it's a difficult set of FA Cup semi-finals to predict. A lot of price changes expected, yeah, after that international break and a lot of people wildcarding. I also think that also plays a part, by the way, in terms of we might see fewer price changes than expected because some of these projected falls and rises will actually be wildcard activity, so that won't actually impact the transfers. Maybe that has been taken into account. No worries, Cilindra. If you're wildcarding in Gameweek 31, would you rather keep in Palmer or get in Saka before tonight's price changes? This might be slightly different. I also looked at the Fulham fixture. I'm not that keen on it. Saka was 9th in my captaincy list, whilst Palmer was 4th. But I still prefer Palmer up until 33, to be honest. But it does booking in a transfer. And if you're also bench boosting in 32 or 33 and have no free hit, you don't want to book in too many. So it does depend on those situations as well. Alex says, hello mate, in hindsight, whom would you have gotten instead of Saka? Or still you'd play him knowing he's benched? Well, I went for Palmer anyway. I didn't go for Saka in the end. So without mentioning Palmer, I don't know. I still maybe would have gone for Saka and just had Murphy start instead, basically. If I knew it in hindsight, because I'd want Saka in 33 anyway. That is my plan, to bring him in. Hopefully Saka doesn't start at all right now. Would have Bowen first on the bench. Yeah, if he doesn't play at all, that would be ideal, but I think he's going to get some minutes, to be honest. I was wondering if I would regret dropping Palmer a couple of weeks ago. Glad I did now. Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it all plays out, right? But it should be very interesting. Yeah, I think Saka will definitely get game time. I'd be surprised if he didn't, to be honest with you. This is the most template wildcard I've ever seen. First thing I'll be doing at kickoff is checking the effective ownership of my team. I think it'll be a bit surprising. I mean, for example, I've got a few picks in there like Livramento, Verbruggen, who won't have that much ownership in general. I mean, what's he got? Oh, fuck, why did I do that? Part of my language. 3% ownership. Yeah, some players I think are quite decent, actually. Oh, great. So yeah, I've been locked out of the team. I'll just show you FPL Challenge in the interim before I wrap up. But yeah, I've got a few players who've got low ownership anyway. It might seem like a lot of people have them because of Twitter and YouTube, but effective ownership will still be lower than you expect. Yeah, deal. The way you check effective ownership is livefpl.net and websites like that. Mohit says, I have a way to keep Saka, Palmer, Salah, and Wildcard with Kluivert and Murphy as the other midfielders, and I have Isak and Marmoush with a cheap striker. Yeah, like Joao Pedro. That could work as well. But I've gone for Mateta. Aitner instead of Munoz bad. I'd rather go for Daniel Munoz, but for Gameweek 34, it would make it slightly more awkward without the free hit. What if Palace win a trophy before Arsenal? I mean, it is what it is, right? I still would be quite confident Arsenal win trophies in the next few years, but we'll wait and see. And what about this year? Very unlikely, but one can dream. Yeah, exactly that, Goldhead. Is Arsenal mad continuing to start Mourinho as a striker? Why not Trossard? Yeah, I mean, Mourinho has been doing the job, to be fair. For an out-of-position striker, even for Spain, he made a difference as a substitute against the Netherlands, but yeah, I would have wanted to see Trossard as a striker and then have Martinelli and Saka as the front three. That's what I want to see for the Champions League against Real Madrid. So, yeah, look, I'll give Arteta the benefit of the doubt. Normally, when I like the lineup, it ends up going tits up, and when I don't like the lineup, it ends up being quite good and gets the job done. But I think for the Champions League in mind, which is the most important thing Arsenal have left to play for, having Mourinho as the super sub is what I'd like to see. I'm at the Emirates. Fulham have parked their team bus in front of the goal, says Joe. Yeah, well, that's pretty much how they've been playing the last few times they've played Arsenal, and they also did something quite similar against Liverpool, albeit a bit more adventurous with the red card Robertson got. But yeah, I think Arsenal will get the job done. It will be difficult though. Fulham are a decent team, but they were put to the sword against Crystal Palace only a couple of days ago. Thanks, Adil, and good luck to you as well. Palmer needs to step it up. Been poor for too long now. I think he will. If he starts, which I'm quite confident of, I think he'll do the business. What minute does Saka come off the bench? Around 60, 65, I'd say. If the SL does something today, I'll fall down crying. Well, let's hope it doesn't happen. I was tempted to do a -4 for Saka, but didn't believe he'd be thrown into the action like this. Well, all the lineups and predictions I've seen and reliable sources indicated that Saka would start, so it was actually quite surprising to see after the deadline passed, people in the live chat were saying that he's benched. It would be funny if Saka came off the bench, Arsenal win a penalty and Odegaard takes it. That's ultimate troll behaviour. Yeah. No Chris Wood, Gibbs White starts. Yeah, so in my case, you know, I've got Cliver in my starting 11 still, but without the wildcard, it would basically be Robinson away to Arsenal coming off my bench. So the wildcard has looked decent so far, but it all depends, I think, on Palmer and Cliver and what happens with them. But yeah, Gibbs White does start. There you go. Bit of surprise there. Xerxes starts over Højlund. I thought Højlund would start now that his scoring jinx has broken. I'm not sure what's happening there, but they're rotating and at least Højlund's got a bit of form going for both club and country. Do you think Cucurella's a good punt for bench boost 32 and blank 34? I did answer your question before, Omar, and my answer was he's okay. I'm not a big fan of Chelsea defenders, though, and I think Cucurella at that price doesn't offer the same value as other players would, like Milenkovic, who is expected to start and feature in blank gimmick 34 anyway. My bad, I didn't realise how that sounded. I meant by wildcard. Yeah, fair enough. I get what you mean now. I did misinterpret what you said. Yeah, it does seem quite template, but I also think the injuries and the international break, coupled with the doubles and blanks and how they've kind of fallen, they've played a big part in pushing people towards that sort of wildcard. I predict Forest versus Villa in the FA Cup final, also keeping easy transfer 37. I think Man City will reach the final. But Forest have a chance. They do. Palace have gotten the better of Villa in recent matches, but maybe it's time for Unai Emery to get one over on Oliver Glasner. Danny Puss's wildcard team, good or bad? It's good. Of course, Saka's benched, which isn't ideal, but he's a great pick for the long term. You've got a solid platform there. 2 Villa players is interesting, but I get it with a double in 33. But it's a good squad overall. Definitely not bad. So Trent 90% going to Madrid. Who should Liverpool buy as a replacement? Well, Frimpong is linked, but he's more of a wing back than a natural fullback. So I think he could actually struggle in that position. Conor Bradley's good though. Let's not forget. They could just get a young upcoming player and just rotate him with Bradley or have him as the backup. Let's not forget Bradley's a decent player, but maybe he will be exposed defensively next season. Good luck, Dylan. Oh, well, good luck, guys. Everything is good decision, and hopefully everyone's team does well. Yeah, same to you, Numlocks. I say Frimpong since he wants to leave and his contract is the end of the season. Yeah. Insane Game has posted United's lineup. So Anana, Dorgu, Yoro, Delict, Mazraoui, Dallo, Ugarte, Casemiro, Bruno, Garnacho, and Xerxes. Oh, that's another play I'm hoping goes quiet. Bruno Fernandes. Hopefully he does stay quiet, but he helped me last week. He definitely did. But now would be a nice time for him to do nothing. So we'll see how that goes. I'll put that lineup here as well, very quickly, for United and Forest. And then we'll wrap up because I have been streaming for almost 3 hours. So we're going to hit the 3-hour mark and call it a day. So yeah, that was just mentioned by Insane Gamer. Thank you for putting the lineup there. Love how people are voting in the poll after the Saka news. Oh yeah, yeah, that happens a lot though. To be fair though, it's actually stayed the same. The last time I checked, it was 52% by Saka now. But yeah, people do that a lot with my community votes. I've noticed where someone's benched or someone outscores the other, and then they vote for the other one. I mean, thank you for that, but it doesn't really matter now. I think looking ahead, this break for Palmer is probably a good thing for him to recharge mentally and physically. Plus, with Lavia, Jackson, Madueke back, he should be all right. Yeah, I think Jackson's going to be massive. It really helps Chelsea, not just Palmer himself with the FPL prospects, but also how Chelsea attack as a unit. I think Jackson, he might have his flaws as a finisher, but he's got great positioning and he links up quite well. Bruno owners will love that Bruno's playing in the 10. Yeah, but he has done really well in a deeper position, irrespective of, playing that deep. He's been getting the goals and the assists, but that is a good point. Kirk is in for Trent. Yeah, good transfer in. No double in 33, but he features in 34 against United. Liverpool fans are calling for the signing of Tino Livramento. He's a good player. I like Livramento. I actually think he's better defensively than Lewis Hall. He might not have the same going forward, but of course they're both good fullbacks, and Newcastle will be desperate to keep them. People seem pretty upset to have Saka this week. Now he's benched. Is it really that bad, though? If Palmer doesn't do great, then it's not an issue. Well, yeah, if Palmer doesn't go off against Tottenham, then it doesn't really matter. However, if Palmer does what I think he will, yeah, I think they will be very frustrated about that, to say the least. I'm happy Gibbs White is starting. Yeah, it's a big boost there for Nottingham Forest for sure. Let me bring up their lineup to complete this coverage of Game Week 30. It is time to wrap things up. So let's look at Forest's full lineup. I'm guessing it's pretty much what you'd expect with Chris Wood out. So Sells in goal with Murillo, Williams, Anderson and Awini. Gibbs White, Elanga, Yates, Danilo, Milenkovic and Aina. So I've only got Milenkovic from this match. I did bench Gabriel to start Raya in the process. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I sold Chris Wood. He's not even on the bench. Yeah, Awini starting in his place is pretty much what you'd expect there. But hopefully Chris Wood is back sooner than expected. That would also throw a curveball in terms of our FPL plans and stuff like that. But yeah, just for those that aren't aware, if I can actually load my team, nope, it's still loading. Probably by 7:15 p.m. they'll update this. But we'll leave it on FPL Challenge to end the coverage of Game Week 30 and all the lineups, which I've just shown you. Feel free to rewind and go back if needed. But there you go. With Saka benched, I have replaced him with Phil Foden. And I've gone for Salah captain, Palmer, Eze, Mateta, Marmoush and Isak, but there could be changes depending on lineups, and maybe I've got second thoughts about certain players. Drop a like on your way out, and it's good to see still a decent number of you here already, so I appreciate that. Wouldn't be bad to help make the title race a little more interesting tonight, but I'd love revenge over Forest. Well, there is no title race, unfortunately, in my opinion, but in terms of Forest versus Arsenal for second place, that is definitely a decent race there. And I think Forest have the better fixtures. Pieter says, will be interesting game week as someone who did a wildcard. I did Pickford and Vista to Raya and Mateta for a -4. I've still got Bruno, so let's see what happens. Yeah, I think the Mateta here could actually pay off in of itself, but Vista could still haul in the same game. And buying a goalkeeper for here, I'm not a big fan of, but big upgrade, and you've got him in place just before the price rise. Forest are going to get so knackered, or be so knackered. It's criminal that they are playing on 2 days rest. Yeah, but that's something you've got to kind of get used to. I know they could have scheduled things a little bit better, especially for Game Week 34, for example, and 33. But yeah, they have now a big task on their hands. They've got to manage these minutes and see if they can still get the results. My wildcard is Twisted Parky, Saka, Raya, Verbruggen, Gabriel, Aina, Byrne, Munoz, Gavardio, Saka, Salah, Murphy, Sarr, Cliver, Marmoush, Isak and Mateta. I think we've got the exact same wildcard, except I've got Milenkovic instead of Aina and Livramento instead of Byrne, Palmer instead of Saka, so 3 changes. I'll be honest though. Yeah, I like the look of it, and I'm guessing you didn't expect me to go for Verbruggen in my wildcard squad. Easy says, EPL 25-26 fixtures will be out in June. Need to rethink plans for 2 months for the next FPL season. Yeah, I might make a few videos here and there around June, but of course, the content will intensify by July. Of course, we've still got the end of this season to think about, but yeah, FPL content and UCL videos and live streams will be there throughout the entire year. Does anyone like Burn from West Ham this week as an outlier? Yeah, I like him. He has a decent record against Wolves as well. Richard says, hey Dylan, just wondering about your first name. It's Welsh, right? But your family's Argentinian. Well, because I live in the UK and they just chose to give me an English name, or a Welsh name in this case. My surname's actually Scottish, so I've got a bit of everything, actually. I think even my second name is Irish, so yeah, I've got a bit of everything, don't I? Joe says, sorry, I meant Kirkus to Liverpool. I was thinking that when he first said it, but then I thought, nah, FPL, let's just talk about that. The thing is, though, Kirkus is a left-back, so he'd basically, he'd be displacing Robertson. So you'd still need a right back if you want to replace Trent, like for like. Thank you, FPL Kevy, and it's always good to see you. Thanks for the vote of confidence, says Quinn O'Connor, quoting Josh. But yeah, I think that is a good punt on Bowen. Hudson-Odoi missing unless he's injured, and I didn't know. Yeah, Hudson-Odoi, I think was another doubt. I mean, I did go for the quotes earlier by Nuno Espirito Santo, and he said that they've got a few like injury doubts and, you know, concerns based on the schedule. So fair with his wildcard team as well. Salah captain, Raya in goal, Martinez as the backup goalkeeper. Yeah, good squad. I like it. I like it a lot. No Saka, right? Interesting stuff there, indeed. You've got Palmer as well. Hopefully that goes well for us. Thank you, Insane Gamer 7, and hopefully you have a great end to the season. If FIFA has fantasy for Club World Cup, will you play and live stream for this? Maybe can keep you for doing nothing for 2 months. I'll still be doing something, don't worry. I'm going on holidays, probably. I'm going on one in literally a week's time. But yeah, no, I'll be doing videos and live streams, don't get me wrong. But I get it. You know, last summer I was very busy with, well, I was working as well, and also got the Euros that I was covering. That was very hectic, but it was a blast covering that. Yeah, if there is a Club World Cup fantasy, it might not be that popular, but if people want to see it, I'd be open to covering that sort of content. Good luck for the week, Dylan. Likewise, Shavain. Dylan, how are your roots linked to Argentina? Both my parents are from Argentina. They were born there. Their parents are also from Argentina. I've been there like 10 times, basically, and I've got dual nationality based on my heritage. Yeah, I'm not sure if FIFA... Oh, yeah, for the World Cup they did, and I covered it on this channel, by the way, in, between November and December 2022. So yeah, World Cups and Euros do have fantasy games. Copa America doesn't. I think there is one for AFCON. But yeah, Club World Cup, I've never seen that be a thing. Just the Parkeepers' predictions. Arsenal 2, Fulham 0. Wolves 1, West Ham 2. Forest 1, United 0. Bournemouth 2, Ipswich Town 1. Brighton 2, Aston Villa 1. Liverpool 2, Everton 0. And Man City 4, Leicester 0. I've got some similar predictions as well. Yeah, hopefully Arsenal keep a clean sheet. I have gone for a Fulham goal, but I'd be happy to be proven wrong. Many Argentinians have Irish-Scottish heritage. Yeah, especially Scottish. I mean, look at McAllister, for example. Greetings from Jamaica to you all, and good luck. Yeah, good to see you, Quinn. Enjoy your stay in Jamaica, or maybe you're from there, but enjoy yourself. Thanks for your help and for a great stream as always. Best of luck for the game week. Yeah, the same goes to you. Whether you're wildcarding or not, all the best for Game Week 30. Off topic, I know, but Barca unbeaten in 2025. I think it's now 17 games unbeaten. It might even be up to 18. But that will be covered in my UCL Fantasy content over the next few weeks as well. Using that annual leave right after the reset. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't even do it last season in terms of during June and July because of the Euros. Or at least I wanted to cover it at home. But yeah, I mean, it's a good time to reset during the summer holidays. But I'll still be doing content, I think. I mean, I just like doing the videos and live streams. Who's the GOAT of football? In my opinion, it's Messi. I mean, I am Argentinian, so you can say I'm biased, but he's the best footballer I've seen. So that's, yeah, the best player for me. Arsenal getting Gyökeres. It's looking more likely now, but I'd still be very cautious about it. And I don't really like looking at all these different links and stuff. Once it happens and he stands on the dotted line and you see the pictures holding up the shirt, that's when I'll be on board with it. But I like the signing. It'd be great. I'm just not so sure if it'll happen. Thank you very much, Joe. As he says, hit a like on the way out. It'd be greatly appreciated. Twisted also says Newcastle 1, Brentford 0, Southampton 0, Palace 3, Chelsea 2, Spurs 1. Group stage of Euros, World Cup fantasy is so fun. Yeah, the World Cup was quite broken, people said, you know, with the rules and stuff and the kind of loopholes, but it was still a lot of fun. Man, you have both perspectives of the... Oh, yeah, and actually my birthday, which is tomorrow, is actually the day the Falklands War started, so it's just meant to be, right? I'm the hybrid. bringing Argentina and England together. Nah, I'm not. I think there will be fantasy for Club World Cup since the format more bigger and 4 years like the World Cup. Yeah, you might be right, to be fair. I'd be surprised, to be fair, though, if there is a fantasy game, so to speak. Game hasn't loaded yet? I don't think so. Either way, I don't want to look at my team just yet. I've already made a wildcard. It's done. And hopefully it performs in Gameweek 30 as well. Do you think the Bruno shot on target super boost is worth it? I mean, I'm not one to advocate on stuff like that, but I'd say so. The thing with Bruno Fernandes is, before his recent patch, he was kind of inconsistent with the shots on target, to be honest with you. Vanderson to Liverpool thoughts. He's a decent player. I haven't seen much of him, only in the Champions League, but he does seem decent. I still think Liverpool would need more, though. I think, as bad as Trent can be defensively at times, it's still a big loss. What do you think about Argentina versus Brazil? Is this Brazil the weakest squad ever? In my lifetime, yes. I mean, they've got some great talent, especially up front, and even some good players sprinkled in between, like Gabriel and Bruno Guimaraes, who were both suspended. But I think with a good manager, and also, yeah, I just think a top manager will make the difference for Brazil. So if they get Ancelotti, for example, I could see them competing for the World Cup next year. Yeah, I think Carlo would be a great appointment. Hopefully they don't get him. Hopefully they don't. Thoughts on Andre Berta acquisition? I'm totally on board. He's got a great track record for Atletico Madrid. A lot of great signings in all positions, and I think he can get some good signings for Arsenal over the line. But once again, let's see how he does. But as soon as he joined, we've seen a lot of links to Gyökeres, for example. It's exciting times, but I'd also want to temper my expectations. Arsenal have let me down a lot in terms of transfers over the years, even in January in 2025. Why do I think Mateta is better than Sesko? Yeah, right now he is better and also Premier League proven, but Sesko has a lot of potential. So yeah, he's not a top striker yet, but he's got the potential to become a world-class striker at one day. Thank you, Stephen. Wishing you a very happy birthday in advance. Thank you. Thank you very much. And same to Shavain and everyone else. Richard Milichip as well. Very kind words. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, the year's gone by so quickly, hasn't it? We're literally already in April. That's the way it feels for me. Why the heck has Etiquette suddenly become an option for Arsenal? He has a lot of potential as well, and he's having a good season. But, yeah. Ultimately, for me, in a dream world, I get Isak. If not, it's going to be Gyökeres. Arsenal going to be linked to so many strikers now. Wasting saying Osimhen, Gyökeres, Isak, Sesko, Delap, Mateta, rank them. Isak first, I think Gyökeres second, Osimhen third, Mateta fourth, Sesko fifth, Delap sixth, and there's not much in it, I think, between the last two, but that's what I do. Well, Donald, Nick the Falklands, once he's got Greenland in the bag. Not too sure about that, to be honest, and I'd rather steer clear of politics, but I've got my opinions on it, which is probably best not shared. Let's not beef. Sophia says a lot of nations will make their debut in the World Cup in 2026. The new format will lead to some mad scorelines and there'll be less quality. Yeah, so for the World Cup, just to make it clear, there will be a fantasy game, but for the Club World Cup, yeah, I just don't see that happening. That's the good thing about there being more teams in the extended format, but there are some pros and cons, a bit like the new Champions League format we saw this season. Dylan, if we get João Garcia, Williams, Zubimendi and Gyökeres in with loans like Sane and potentially even signing Xavi Simons over Williams, how would you rate it? It's good. I'd say it's a 7, maybe an 8, but it also depends on context, you know, because I've seen David Ornstein, for example, say that Arsenal might need to sell like a big name or like a valuable asset to get that done. So that also plays a part. Which other players do they sell? How's the squad depth looking? And I still think Arsenal need another midfielder, preferably a creative force to kind of take the burden off Odegaard. So yeah, I'd say maybe 7 or 8. No, my birthday's in April, 1 day off of 4, so 2nd of April. It's just tomorrow. I probably won't do a stream tomorrow because there's a lot of games happening, but I might make a video, record it, and if there is a reaction stream, it will likely be on Thursday, on the 3rd of April. In the June international window, there will be debutant nations playing in the World Cup. Yeah, that's a good point as well. Who would you bring in Thursday if Palmer's out? Well, unless Palmer's out for a long time, I'd buy Saka, who is benched obviously now. But yeah, that is pretty much my plan, to sell Palmer to Saka in 33 anyway. Thank you, Sophia. I appreciate the belated, could you say? Yeah, the happy birthday wishes in advance, but thank you very much to everyone who's been saying it. Numlux as well. Happy birthday for tomorrow. Have a good day. Hopefully your day in FPL picks will be good. Yeah, the FPL picks, we'll see about that, but it's not too shabby on paper, which is the most important thing in my opinion. Am I the only one who finds it hard to see Isak move in this summer? A couple of weeks ago, I thought, you know what, I think he's going to leave if Newcastle don't reach the Champions League spots, but yeah, a lot of the reports do indicate now that he is going to stay. It's going to be very difficult to get Newcastle to sell. Thank you, Joe, as well. I appreciate it. Is Neymar retiring from international since he's always injured around his sister's birthday, or maybe he's fit to play for the World Cup? I still think he'll be available for the next year or two, but if he keeps getting injured, yeah, he might just call it a day. It's a huge shame, by the way. His stats for Brazil and his performances are top-notch. He probably deserves more trophies. I mean, just the Confederations Cup and the Olympic gold medal. But yeah, top-quality player, levels above Vinicius Jr. and all these players who are obviously world-class, but Neymar is levels above. Isak to Liverpool is looking likely. They should have a ton of money, having won the Premier League and not having spent anything last summer. I hope that's not the case. Even if Arsenal get Gyökeres, that's a top signing, and Liverpool will be in a strong position next season if they do that. Ansari says, my birthday's on the 4th. Well, happy birthday to you in advance as well. I'll probably say it again in the next stream if you're here. But yeah, a lot of birthdays coming up. I mean, you could say that about any time of the year, to be fair. Since Vinicius is in Neymar's position, yeah, obviously, like I mentioned just now, levels below for me, but now over the last couple of seasons, yeah, Vinicius is now the go-to guy for Brazil. I just think Neymar has that added quality though, and he performs in the big games for the Brazil national team. They'll be selling Diaz, Nunez, and Jota, so they might have less squad depth but more quality. So they'll probably add another player or two anyway. I needed this, lost my job a week ago, then Brighton lost. Sorry to hear that, Twister Parky. Hopefully things go well for you, but I'm sure you'll get back on top in all aspects, and all the best to you, Twister Parky, for the rest of the season. Mohit says, I'm not a fan at all, but Leroy Sané to Arsenal is looking quite strong. It's a strong take, but I wish we could go for Grealish instead. That's definitely a strong take. I wouldn't go for him personally, but he's more of a goals and assists guy. He's like a ball carrier, which Arsenal do need, to be honest. Yeah, Sané obviously scored a brace recently for Bayern Munich, but I'm not a big fan. I mean, if you can get him for free, is it going to be better than Sterling? Probably. But I think Sané would have been a better signing 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago. He was doing really well for Bayern Munich up until, I'd say, last season. Thank you very much, Wei Seng. I'll try my best, and I'm sure I will. It should be a good one. If Arsenal get Gyökeres, they can also sign a quality winger, but getting Isak would limit the recruitment needed in other positions. Yeah, but it's about time Arsenal sign a striker. They've neglected that position so much. They have to get one. Especially a world-class, goal scorer who can just bag those goals in. Will you be physically attending the World Cup next year? Probably not. I've got family in the USA, but I just don't see it. We'll never say never, but it's very unlikely. What is the point of the Club World Cup? For example, can you really compare Inter Miami to Man City? Well, it's just an intercontinental competition. The champions of every single region, and now it's extended, so you can see previous champions as well, just battling out for another trophy. More money, more football. FIFA is happy. Dylan, do you have any footballers who are born on your birthday? I remember everyone used to be gassed over that some years ago. There aren't many, to be honest. I think Miralem Pjanic, who might not be active anymore, he was one of them. I can't remember any others. So it's kind of like maybe a low-key birthday in terms of celebrities and stuff like that. What's Haaland's rank amongst the strikers just now? Probably still first, but Isak is not too far off. I think as an overall player, you could say Isak is better dribbler, passer, etc. But Haaland's the more prolific goal scorer. Happy birthday, lad. Support Chelsea, so I won't wish an Arsenal win, but hopefully everything else goes well. I get that. Yeah, same to you. Obviously, I hope you have a good week. And with Chelsea, I don't actually mind if you beat Tottenham this week. A draw is maybe the best result. But yeah, I won't complain. Cunha wants to leave Arsenal, maybe. Andrea Berta does have those links, possibly. But yeah, I think Arsenal should go all out for Gyökeres first, but the more the merrier. I think Arsenal need 2 forwards and arguably 2 midfielders as well. Difficult to say easy. There's a lot of transfer flops, so to speak. I mean, in Premier League history, you're looking at Maguire, Anthony, Ndombele, Nicola Pepe. I do think Pepe's a bit overhated, so I don't think he's in the top 3 worst transfers ever. but he would be amongst like the Premier League kind of notorious list of expensive transfers that didn't work out. Grealish, 100 million's a lot, but he did have a great season in the treble-winning campaign. But yeah, I'd say Anthony in the Premier League stands out. Joao Felix at Atletico, maybe. Griezmann to Barcelona. Coutinho, to be fair, started well, then fell off a cliff. So there are quite a few, but I need to think about it. Thank you, Sharia Ansari. Hope you had a good birthday, mate. Just wish our club gives you an early birthday present sprinkled with some Saka magic. That's the hope. Yeah, we've got 7 games tomorrow, but Arsenal isn't one of them. But yeah, hopefully it's an early birthday gift. Argentina did very well for me, obviously, against Uruguay and Brazil. Hopefully Arsenal can follow suit. And thank you very much for the kind words again. Yeah, Saka benched, but I don't have him, so I'm not really too bothered, actually. I've got Palmer. We need Williams to join us, Cucurella and Nico. Hopefully not, but that would be a great signing for both Chelsea or Arsenal, whoever he ends up going to. He might not go to either. He might just go to Barcelona or stay where he is. Cunha says he wants to go next level. Well, yes. I mean, Wolves are in a relegation battle. They're a decent club, of course. And Cunha, he did say he wanted to stay in January. I don't know. It's just a lot of teams will be in for him. Thank you, my fair grown M. Thank you very much. Still a bit of time left. Can you see Henry and Isak? He's the most likely, he's the most similar stylistically to Thierry Henry. He's nowhere near, though, in my opinion. There are a lot of levels to it, but he's the closest you'll get in terms of, you know, the style of player, especially in that position. Sane provides depth. I'd much rather have him on free than the likes of Sterling. I agree, but I still would rather have Nico Williams as a long-term ploy. And Arsenal have signed a lot of these kind of players before in the last couple of seasons that have kind of been past their best. Sterling is one of them. Porto, Juve and Salzburg are in the Club World Cup, but Liverpool and Barca aren't. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, coefficients and stuff like that, but that's the kind of like grey area of the Club World Cup. United versus Forest, both teams to score. I've gone for 1-0 Forest, so my advice would probably say no, but don't hold me to it because, yeah, could it be a 2-1? Absolutely. I think United have a very good record against Forest, actually. They really do. But I've gone for 1-0 Nottingham Forest. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Other people that share Dylan's birthday, Andre Onana, wow. Josip Stanisic, I didn't know that. Rodrigo Riquelme. And Pjanic still active for CSKA Moscow. Yeah, because the last time I checked this was like 10 years ago. So yeah, Pjanic was one of the kind of standout names. Yeah, I wasn't aware of the ones you said, so interesting stuff there. It's still quite low-key, in my opinion. Cunha to Villa would be big. Oof, that would upset a lot of people. It really would, but yeah, with Rashford and Asensio being loan signings, if they don't sign them permanently, yeah, Cunha would be a great one. Sanchez to United, big flop too. Yeah, that was a flop, to be fair. Mkhitaryan to Arsenal, albeit Sanchez had more hype and expectation. Would you rather Cunha and Gyökeres or Isak alone? That is a great question. If Isak's the only striker Arsenal sign, I mean, that's still a level raiser. And I think that could be enough to push Arsenal to a Premier League title. That's a very good question, but I do like Gyökeres a lot. And Cunha can play as an attacking midfielder or as a winger, even as like a second striker or being like a tertiary or auxiliary striker option there. So it's close. I might say Isak though, I can't lie, but trust me, either one I would not be complaining. Hazard to Madrid, yeah. There are some reports for us want to sign Gyökeres, especially for a European competition. I saw those links like last month, but now, over the last couple of days, Arsenal are heavily linked. We're going to see this up until, you know, the transfer deadline in September. So there's going to be a lot of reports here, especially with Chris Wood's age. I also think Chris Wood will have a big drop-off next season. He might still do quite well, but not getting close to 20 Premier League goals in a season. Bro, what has Simeone cooked? All 3 of his sons are playing football at the top levels. Yeah, look, Yelone Simeone, he scored a great goal against Brazil. I don't think he's a great player, but he's got the tenacity and the work ethic, a bit like his father. And yeah, it was a great goal. So you're not going to find me bashing him. Pause. Same car, Verstappen or Schumacher. I do think Verstappen is one level above Schumacher for me. I kind of grew up in that era. I think Verstappen is like the closest you'll get, and stylistically, as like a driving style, you know, the kind of aggression, win at all costs, Verstappen reminds me a lot of Schumacher, which is why he's my favorite driver right now. But I just think Schumacher, like, he took Ferrari, who were terrible in the 90s, by the way, with a great team, of course, of Ross Brawn and you had Jean Todt and stuff like that. They still were able to build a great car, and he kind of played a big part in developing that Ferrari into a dominant force in the early 2000s. I don't think Verstappen has that in him, in my opinion. But even in the second or third fastest car, he can still win races and stuff like that. But for example, I think it was 95 or 90, I think it was 96. Schumacher had a terrible Ferrari car, like maybe fourth, fifth fastest in that particular race, and he still won in Barcelona. So they're both great, but I think Schumacher is still the one. He's still the best driver that I've seen, along with, Senna, Fangio. Hamilton would be up there statistically, of course, but I think Schumacher is the best I've seen. Feels like Forest will spend big if they qualify for the UCL. They have spent a lot, though, in recent years. Let's not forget that. Maybe not last summer, but beforehand they have. Lukaku to Chelsea, huge flop. Yep. You cannot say flop without Pepe. I just don't think he's as big of a flop though as Anthony, if I'm being honest. But I did mention Pepe. I did mention him, but top 3 of all time, definitely not. There would be a debate about top 10 in Premier League history, but I think there have been worse. Can't wait to see our new star boy, Estevao. That has been, how many years ago did you sign him? It feels like ages. The deadline has passed, mate. I'm just still streaming for some reason. It was over an hour ago, actually. Chase says, use my wildcard today, bench boost in 32 and triple captain in 36, or is it the other way around? I'll be honest, I'd rather get rid of the bench boost as soon as possible. It depends on how you wildcarded and how your bench boost looks like in 32, but if it looks strong, I'd use it in 32 and triple captain in 36. So yeah, Senna was a bit before my time, to be fair, and a lot of people say he's like the fastest driver ever. I'll say Schumacher, but they're both great. I mean, if you're building like a top 5, they're both in it with Fangio. I'd probably say Hamilton statistically as well. I think Prost is very underrated as well. Very, very underrated. 4-time champion and matched Senna, sometimes even surpassed him. Dylan, you reckon Sesko suits our style better over Gyökeres? Sesko is 6'5" with insane ball striking, is much quicker than Gyökeres, while Gyökeres isn't that good in the air. Well, the thing is with Gyökeres, though, he is a unit. He's actually quite powerful and he's quite pacey, in my opinion. I'm not sure if Sesko's quicker. It might be quite similar in that regard. But Gyökeres is more clinical. He's also ready right now to score goals and get Arsenal over the line. I think Sesko might need another year or two. I'm kind of tired of waiting. It might seem very impatient, but I'd rather sign Gyökeres from the two. Yeah, it was quite a while ago. Potter Out says, Cuidado, vengo por tu casa, gafota te conozco. What the hell? Is this April Fool's Day or something? Thank you very much, mate. Just reading it now. Seeming like Ben White has a niggle. We just got him back. We need him fit for the 2 legs against Real. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of discouraging people from going Timber, so going for Gabriel if possible, because we could see... let me just deal with this 1 second. Yeah, we could see Timber and White rotate quite a lot between Gameweek 32 and 33. But yeah, we'll see how that injury develops. Hopefully White is available soon. He's had a injury-ridden season, which is a big shame. He has normally been very reliable for Arsenal in terms of minutes, and hopefully he can start games consistently. But thank you everyone for tuning in. It has been a blast. FPL will now be updated because I've been live for that long. I've shown all the lineups. And yeah, this is my Gameweek 30 team. We are approaching the kickoffs of the first few matches, like Arsenal versus Fulham and Wolves versus West Ham. So it should be a blast. If you haven't already, drop a like on the stream, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification bell so don't miss a single upload or live stream for both FPL and UCL Fantasy. Check all the links in the description below for my X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, Dylan RCM, and check all the links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships, for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, FPL League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. And yeah, just thank you to everyone. FPL site is bugged. It should be clear now. Maybe it is bugged, to be fair, but if you keep refreshing, it should be fine now. Yeah, I get you. You're right. The numbers don't lie with Gyökeres. He's tearing it up. Surely if he scores 50 at Sporting, he gets at least 20 in the Prem. Yeah, if he acclimatizes well and gets the service, I think he will. The way Sporting play, I get your point about the style point of view. Maybe Gyökeres won't get those kind of runs in behind as often with so much space, but I also think he can be that kind of difference maker where Arsenal score first, teams open up. Gyökeres is a key reason to it by being clinical, and then he gets those spaces later in the games. But of course, the way Sporting play in transition compared to Arsenal's possession style, it is different. but I think he'd be a top signing regardless. Good to see you as well, Mr. Parky. Good night to you. And to you as well, and Sari, thank you very much for the kind words. Same with Safir and everyone else in the chat. If you have any more questions and stuff like that, let me know in the comment section down below, and also in the Discord server and all those social media platforms. I'll see you very soon for more FPL and Use Your Fantasy content, which is returning over the next week. Good luck for Gameweek 30, and yeah, let's see how we do with the wildcard active as well. But yeah, even if you don't have the wildcard active, it is going to be interesting times ahead with all the doubles and blanks coming up. But I'll see you next time, hopefully on Thursday for a reaction stream. But next Tuesday, keep your eyes peeled for Use Your Fantasy deadline stream. I'll see you there.